Chapter 3780. She gathered her divine conscience and opened her divine eye. She scanned their heads but didn't see the black crystals marked by the Heavenly Fate Empire. She was certain that they weren't from the Heavenly Fate Empire. The little girl wasn't anxious at all and said very mildly, "So the Clear Heaven sect still has you remnants?" They probably weren't remnants. These people were probably from the Clear Heaven sect's headquarters in the Divine Province. After all, her old opponent had always held the Clear Heaven sect's power. She thought that when she was in Shuntian Prefecture, she had already gotten rid of everyone from Clear Sky sect, including Fan Gu and Fan Chioha. Those bastards had all gone to hell. She truly didn't expect her old opponent to secretly preserve a portion of their strength. Among the remaining remnants, there was actually a candidate for the Transcendence Realm. It wasn't easy. Although this Transcendence Realm cultivator looked like she had just broken through to Mystique Venerable Realm and couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as Spiritual Venerable Realm or Immortal Venerable Realm. However, Aubrey knew very well that someone who had broken through to early-stage Mystique Venerable Realm could probably crush 100 or so Deity Realm powerhouses with ease. Moreover, she was merely a mere level 15 Great Spiritual Master. In this Mystique Venerable Realm cultivator's eyes, she was probably just a weakling. Therefore, they didn't take her seriously at all and didn't even surround her. They clearly knew that under their own strength, this little girl had no chance of escaping. Therefore, what was the rush? She was merely a little chick that they could squash to death at any time anyway. The leader with a saber scar openly admitted his identity and said with a smile, "We underestimated you before. Now that we're here again, you won't be able to escape alive." So what if they admitted they were from the Clear Heaven sect? Could a weakling like this little girl counterattack and kill them? Ha ha ha, don't joke around. Those people who chased after her previously lost their lives because they were weak. They were completely different from those people before her. Xiao Mu gazed at them strangely before abruptly flinging out a ball of divine energy with her palm. A loud boom shook half of the Phoenix Grove. Halfway through pill refinement, Dou Fenghua, who was at a critical juncture, didn't even look up under the protection of these people. She continued to calmly carry out her actions. Duan Yu and Mo Lian abruptly stood up from underneath the tree. Following the sound, they looked up towards the depths of the forest, a hint of confusion flitting through their eyes. "I'll go over and take a look." According to his professional judgment, the person who could make such a big noise must be his wife. It couldn't be helped. His wife was such an arrogant and unscrupulous person who considered everything beneath her. Duan Yu quickly reached out to grab him. "Jojo has Rotten Peach Blossom and the others by his side, so don't worry. On the other hand, if we go over now, we won't be of any help. Why don't we continue to wait here for the Dou clan's young master to refine the medicinal pills? We can rush over in a few minutes, right?" "That's right, Crown Prince. Looking at the time, young Master Dou's pill should be coming out soon." Mata nodded. "When the time comes, you two and Big Brother Mu should take it first before heading over." Mo Lian thought about it and agreed. Rotten Peach Blossom, Little Tai Sui, and the others were all by Jojo's side, so there was really no need to worry. Half an hour wouldn't make much of a difference. Mo Lian then sat down with Duan Yu. On the other side, eldest Qin's Omega Kotoka team, which had just stepped into the Phoenix Grove's entrance, coincidentally ran into Ming Yassi's team. Before they could greet each other, they were shaken by a huge quake. Chapter 3781. Ollie rolled his eyes and muttered offhandedly, "Who knows what the little stoic is up to again?" Ming Yassi couldn't resist twitching his mouth. He truly didn't want to ask his younger brother how he knew it was the stoic face who was up to no good, because he was also thinking the same thing. There should be a large group of students who haven't arrived yet. Let's go to the nearby fortification first and see if we can purchase 2 portions of medicinal herbs from the pharmacy first, Omega Kotoku said aloofly. Eldest young Sir Qin nodded with a grin. "Okay, we might even run into Jojo by chance." Qin Jiu hastily interjected, "I wonder how Fifth Brother and the others are doing now." He was really worried about Fifth Brother. Nothing would happen to him with Seventh Brother, right? The two of them already had some animosity to begin with. Seventh Brother probably wouldn't target Fifth Brother all the time when they were outside, right? Previously, Qin Jiu had insisted on keeping Fifth Brother in his team, and Eldest Brother and Second Brother also agreed. However, Fifth Brother himself didn't agree and had them find Qin 13 instead. First it was to take care of 13. This child was introverted and antisocial. If their team didn't accept him, probably no other team would. Moreover, although Chin 13 didn't have any cultivation, he had awakened a special speed ability. He could run when he encountered danger, and no one could catch up to him. He also wouldn't be a burden to the team. Fifth brother only did this out of consideration for them. Although sister Chin 1 was also with fifth brother, Chin Jiu was still worried about fifth brother's safety. Little fifth and the others should be arriving soon. Eldest young Sir Chin said with a smile. But Phoenix Grove is so big, so they might not necessarily run into each other. Let nature take its course. Chin Jiu could only nod his head. Let's go. Seeing that everyone from the Chin estate was heading toward the small supply point, Ali hastily said to Ming Yasi, "We're going too. If we can get medicinal herbs at the supply point, it'll save us the trouble of going into the forest to pick herbs." Ming Yasi nodded, and the group quickly moved toward the small supply point. "Hey, old Chi, your business has been really good recently," a shopkeeper from a nearby shop said in a joking tone. Before the Omega Kotoku could ask, an old hand reached out from behind the counter and waved at them. No, we don't have the herbs you want." Chin Jiu grabbed the old man's hand and pulled it out with all his strength. Half of the old man's body was pulled out of the counter. Everyone looked at him and couldn't help but facepalm. This old ghost's face had been beaten so badly that even his own parents wouldn't be able to recognize him. The shopkeeper next to him exclaimed, "Old man Huang, what's wrong with you? Why do you look even worse than before? You weren't dragged out and beaten up again, were you?" At this moment, old Chi too was about to burst into tears. At noon, he went back to take a nap, but not only was he beaten up, even the 500,000 spirit coins hidden in the cracks of the wall was taken away. The savings that he had accumulated over the years were all gone. Sob, this was truly a fatal blow. How could he have expected that he would continuously run into academy students who cheated him? He didn't know who had poached him and beaten him up this afternoon. His old man's face was beaten up so badly that he couldn't see anyone anymore. When he thought of his 500,000 spirit coins, he wanted to cry. At this moment, the surrounding stall owners began to sympathize with old Chi. Chapter 3782. Sure enough, when one was down on their luck, even cold water would get stuck between one's teeth. Before today, that old man was still in high spirits, but unexpectedly, he was beaten up twice in one day and one night. He was truly miserable. Chin Jiu wanted to laugh when he saw his sorrowful old face. He smoothed out the creases on his collar and placed him back on the counter. Suppressing a smile, he said, "You definitely have medicinal herbs here. Don't be secretive and take them out openly. We'll take as much as you have. We won't shortchange you." When the old man heard the word money, he instantly got goosebumps all over his body. He frantically waved his hand and said, "I dare not accept your money. It's just that I've already provided 3 batches of medicinal herbs this morning. I don't have them now." The more he spoke, the lower his voice became. The old man was used to observing people's expressions, so when he saw young Master Omega Kotoku's darkening expression, his heart instantly thumped. He wasn't going to get beaten up again, right? The old man repeatedly swallowed his saliva and hastily said, Right, just now, 2 batches of medicinal herbs were delivered at noon." Just 2. "Money? I don't want your money anymore. You take your medicine and leave the store." As the old man spoke, he turned around with a bitter expression and took out 2 packets of medicinal herbs from the cabinet, placing them on the counter. Eldest Chin was just about to reach out to take them when a palm reached over and directly pressed down on one of the packets of medicinal herbs. 1 packet per person. Eldest young Master Chin shrugged non-committally and directly took the packet of medicinal herbs, handing it to a taciturn alchemist in the team. Ming Yossi turned to glance at that old man, feeling that the other party was a bit strange. That old man, whose face had been beaten so badly that he didn't even look human, actually shrank back in horror when he saw them looking over, as if they were some kind of scourge or ferocious beast. It was truly like seeing a ghost. 1 set of medicinal herbs could at least recover 1 person's combat strength, and it would be much more convenient to harvest medicinal herbs after recovering one's strength. Both teams were rather satisfied with this outcome, so they didn't find fault with the old man and directly left the small stronghold after taking the medicinal herbs. After the old man saw them leave, he let out a long sigh of relief. His heart was in so much pain that tears flowed out. However, he muttered to himself, "This time, I didn't take their money. They won't be able to come back and beat me up, right? Old Chi, they should be students from the royal school." A few stall owners beside him smiled and said, "Yes, the words Royal Academy are embroidered on the clothes." The Royal Academy is one of the top academies in the 3 prefectures. The students who come out from there are indeed all very unique. Old Chi wanted to laugh at that person's face. In his opinion, he was more like a violent maniac. Forget it, forget it. Since he couldn't afford to offend him, he could just hide. At most, he would stop doing business in the next few days. He hurriedly packed up his things and went to a nearby inn to avoid the limelight for a few days. He wouldn't sell it, all right? This time, Old Chi managed to escape in time and managed to avoid the arrival of the royal school students on the second day. Arbor didn't know that after they violently beat up the old man that night, the old man was also beaten up by Mo Lien and Duan Yu the next morning at this moment. She was leading the 3 people with the saber-scarred man to stroll around the garden in the Phoenix Wood Forest. Previously, the ball of divine energy had exploded in time and directly blasted one of the spiritual realm men into smithereens, turning him into a wisp of ash. Chapter 3783. The knife-scarred man and his 3 subordinates hadn't expected such a thing to happen at all, so they were completely unprepared. The spirit realm man among them was relatively weaker in terms of cultivation. When the divine powerball exploded, a torrential heat wave rolled over. This guy was the first to be hit, but he was crushed to pieces in a matter of minutes. How unlucky! At this moment, the man with the knife scar under his eye was truly furious. He hadn't expected that one of the 4 would die before the battle even began. Sure enough, his master's warning was right. Don't underestimate that little girl. Little bitch. One of the men cursed vaguely. When I catch you later, see if I don't torture you to death. A cold light flashed in Aber's eyes. They'd specifically chosen the densely wooded areas of the Phoenix Wood Forest to run to, leading people further and further away. Surround them. The knife-scarred man shouted coldly and waved his hand. The 3 people formed a triangular formation and abruptly leaped out from behind Xiao Mu, directly encircling her in the center. The man's eyes revealed a mocking sneer and he teased, "Little bitch, let's see where you can run to." Aber looked at them expressionlessly, the corners of his mouth rising slightly, revealing an extremely strange and mocking expression. "When your master sent you here, didn't he warn you?" "Warn what?" The man shouted coldly, shaking all the fat on his body. "You little bitch, you're about to die and you still dare to be so stubborn. See if I don't ah." Before he finished speaking, he felt a dagger slashing horizontally at his neck. That dagger was very strange, as if it had appeared out of thin air, instantly drawing a thin line of blood on his neck. But this guy's reaction was very timely. When he saw the dagger appear, his entire body fell back, narrowly avoiding that fatal blow. Therefore, the dagger only made a small cut on his neck and did not harm any vital organs. The man roared furiously, "Little bitch, you asked for it." He covered the small wound on his neck with one hand and took out a bottle of hemostatic medicine from his inner world with the other. He was just about to swallow one. Suddenly, a large amount of black blood gushed out from the small wound on his neck. Piu! Like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers, it sprayed out. The man was so scared that he almost peed his pants. He quickly pressed down on the wound on his neck and looked at Arbor in horror. The little girl in front of him was still expressionless as she looked at him indifferently. That expression in his eyes was especially like that of a ghost. It was so cold that it was almost frightening. "What did you do?" Another man reached out to grab Arbor's arm. "Damn it." The man with the knife scar scolded angrily. "That dagger was poisoned. Hand over the antidote." Arbor looked at them coldly. "You want to win with numbers? How dare a few small fries yell at my Jojo?" A red figure abruptly appeared next to Qiao Mu, and ruthlessly punched the face of the man who was about to grab Qiao Mu's arm. Ouch! The man's face was full of pain. He took a few steps back and looked over in horror. The man with the knife scar couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He suddenly kicked his partner beside him toward He Chen and ran away without hesitation. "Keske, just now you were in high spirits and looking like you wanted to bully my Jojo. Why are you so scared now?" Chapter 3784. You're a transcendent realm, yet you don't even have the strength to fight. Aren't you too cowardly? Ma Shurchin said with a cold gaze. With a wave of her hand, the surrounding trees grew like all living things. They creaked as they struggled to move to the left and right, completely enveloping the place like a wood spirit purgatory. The man with the scar did not dare to look back. He tried his best to move forward. He only wanted to leave this purgatory as soon as possible and return to report to his master. His master had been chasing this little girl for so long. Did he not know what kind of terrifying creature she was? She had a portable spirit domain. When the spirit domain opened, she could summon a transcendent realm at any time. The man with the scar stopped cold all over. There was some fear in his eyes as he looked at the two men standing in front of him. To be precise, one of them was only 8 or 9 years old, but the tyrannical saint power fluctuations on his body terrified him. You're already over 100 years old, yet you're bullying a little girl. Don't you feel ashamed? Little Tai Sui said expressionlessly with a cold face. If he knew how to feel ashamed, he wouldn't have come looking for trouble with Jojo, Dao Wuji said with a smile as he hugged his sword. He moved his limbs. Little Tai Sui, I'll go first. I haven't exercised my limbs in a long time. Let's play with this kid. With that, he flew up with his sword and slashed at the man's face. Boom! The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal had already set up a wood spirit domain. No matter how big the commotion was, no one would notice. Therefore, Dao Wuji did not feel the slightest psychological burden when fighting with the man with the scar. In any case, he greeted him with the most powerful moves. The man with the scar groaned inwardly as soon as he started fighting. He was only a transcendent realm early-stage mystique venerable realm cultivator. How could he be compared to Dao Wuji? Dao Wuji had already entered the late-stage spiritual venerable realm and was about to enter the peak stage. He could kill an early-stage mystique venerable realm cultivator in a matter of minutes. After 3 slashes, the man with the scar was sent flying by Dao Wuji and fell heavily at Auber's feet. His triangular eyes moved slightly, and just as he was about to violently seize Auber, he saw the cold light in the little girl's eyes. A 5-tailed white squirrel with fluffy white fur appeared beside him. It stepped on one of the man's thighs. With a crack sound, the man with the knife scar let out a wail. He looked at Xiao Mu in horror, and he regretted accepting this fatal mission immensely. No wonder his master had repeatedly reminded him not to let his guard down. It turned out that this fiend really had a myriad of tricks up his sleeves. She didn't really run around the Phoenix Wood Forest in a panic. The more she ran, the more secluded she became. She did it on purpose, because all her tricks were waiting for him here. If Auber could hear his thoughts, he would definitely sneer at him. All of his tricks? Are these all that I have up my sleeves? Wishful thinking. Bang bang. Little Tai Sui tossed the 2 wretched figures that had been brutally beaten before Xiao Mu. Xiao Mu ruthlessly stomped on one of the people's leg bones and tossed him a poison pill with an apathetic gaze. You want to properly play with me, is it? She nodded and said coldly, Sure. This man was the stinky hooligan who had been vaguely flirting with her. How dare he flirt with Jojo's lotus? He must be tired of living. Chapter 3785. Little Tai Sui and Dao Wuji both looked at the expressionless Charles, then looked at each other. They felt like that person was going to be in big trouble. However, this had nothing to do with them. Who asked these idiots to be crazy and want to deal with Charles? Reality would teach them how to behave. When Auber flicked a pill into the man's mouth, he reflexively wanted to spit it out. But was that possible? The pill melted in his mouth and disappeared without a trace. That person's face immediately changed. Not knowing what had happened, he crawled back and took 2 steps back. What did you do? Although he didn't know what pill the little girl had fed him, it couldn't be anything good. The man opened his mouth in horror, his voice trembling slightly. Auber looked at him coldly and said meaningfully, Don't worry. You'll taste it in a few minutes. Didn't you want to play? You're playing with yourself. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal was walking over. When he heard this, he felt a chill all over and rubbed his arm. Strange. When Lord Jojo said this, he felt a little scared. At this moment, the drug was starting to take effect. The man suddenly fell to the ground and curled up. He arched his body and covered a certain part of his body. His face was purple and red, and he let out terrifying roars. Little Tai Sui and Dao Wuji were also shocked. Dao Wuji, in particular, took 3 steps back and stayed far away from the man. It was as though he would be infected if he got close to the man. So scary. What was that man going through? Seeing the veins on his head bulging and the man rolling back and forth on the ground while covering that part of his body and begging for mercy, Dao Wuji couldn't help but tremble. Little Tai Sui swallowed and silently took a few steps back. He reached out a small hand and subconsciously tugged at the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's sleeve. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal put away his mischievous smile and coughed in all seriousness. He asked Lord Chow Chow in a small voice, "Chow Chow Chow, what medicine is this?" Arbor turned to look at them. Curious? The 3 men, big and small, shook their heads at the same time. His appearance was somewhat strange. When they shook their heads, their bodies were stiff and motionless, so Arbor could only see 3 big heads shaking vigorously. This pill has a good name. Chow Mu's gaze shifted downwards. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal subconsciously jumped back and pulled little Tai Sui in front of him. It's over. Doomed pill? The 3 of them exclaimed and looked at Chow with strange expressions. Initially he didn't have a name, but when he thought of it earlier, he felt that it was a more appropriate name. Her words were vague and she wanted to bully Charles. She couldn't even bully her in her thoughts. Since he had such thoughts, he was done for. Jojo's methods were crude and simple. He was just that strong. Not long after, the unlucky guy who ate the doomed pill suddenly let out a tragic howl. A soft pop came from somewhere on his body. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, Little Tai Sui, and Dao Wuji all took a few steps back and looked in horror at a certain guy who was sprawled on the ground like a dead dog, unable to get up again. It really exploded? It looked like it was in pain. Of all the places, it only exploded there. How terrifying. Chapter 3786. Auber turned around and waved at the 3 people far away from her. What are you doing? Hurry up and pack up. Let's go. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal hurried over and hugged the little fellow. He rubbed her little head. Jojo, I'm scared. Little Tai Sui rolled his eyes. Dao Wuji couldn't help but roll his eyes as well. How shameless was this fellow. Jojo should have fed him the medicine that killed him. Auber patted the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. Don't be scared. I'll be gentler in the future. Everyone. When have you ever been gentler? The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal couldn't help but chuckle. He winked at Auber and nodded. All right, my ass. Stop acting cute. Little Tai Sui walked over and tugged at the corner of his robe. Go pack up. Pack up? Of course, it was the 3 men who had lost their ability to fight. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal sucked the man with the knife scar over. He pressed his hand against the man's head and smiled at him. The man with the knife scar knew at once what fate awaited him. He hurriedly begged for mercy. Sir, Venerable Immortal, please spare my life. I can confess. I cannot. Who asked you to confess? How could your confession be trusted? Of course, the easiest way was to search his soul. The man with the knife scar knew that he didn't have long to live. His eyes flashed with anger as he shouted, "You want to kill me? Then let's die together." The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal didn't even look at him. He lifted his finger and completely sealed the saint power around him. The man with the knife scar's pupils constricted. His entire head drooped listlessly. It turned out that in the hands of a Venerable Immortal, self-destruction was just a joke. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal narrowed his eyes and quickly searched the man's soul. They are all disciples of the Clear Sky sect. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal was somewhat familiar with this sect's name. Back in Shuntian Prefecture, hadn't this sect already been destroyed? It turned out that the Clear Sky sect's forces were also distributed in the 3 prefectures. I found the contact information. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal smiled faintly at the little girl. He raised his hand and patted her little head. This time, we will definitely uncover the evil person hiding behind the scenes. Where is their contact point? The little girl asked with a sullen expression. The outskirts of Dragonflame City, the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal said with a smile. Arbor looked coldly into the distance. This time, when he returned to Dragonflame City, he would drag him out. That guy had been hiding for a long time. It was rare for him to find something useful in the minds of his subordinates. He hoped that he could end this once and for all. Don't worry, it will definitely be a big surprise. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal tugged at the little girl's hand. Let's go. Auber raised his hand and a few blue flames fell on the bodies of the knife-scarred man and the other two, slowly burning them. Wait. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal stopped in his tracks and extended his hand to block Auber. Everyone stopped in their tracks and looked in the direction of his gaze. They saw a few colorful flowers burrowing out from the wooden vines that had been surrounded by He-Shurchen. They crawled toward their feet in a dense mass. Soon, this circle of strange little flowers covered the ground, completely trapping them in the wood spirit realm. Auber flicked his finger. A bead landed on the flowers and was corroded into pieces in a matter of minutes. What an interesting poisonous flower. Chapter 3787. It had to be known that the golden bead she had flicked out was actually corroded in less than a second by the poisonous flower juice. What an interesting flower. Who knew where it had crawled out from? Auber squatted down and waved her hand at Ji Chen, Little Tai Sui, and Dao Wuji. Chop chop. The little white squirrel shrunk to the size of a palm and jumped onto her shoulder. Its two black bead-like eyes stared unblinkingly at the gorgeous flowers and plants on the ground. Auber's two small hands were covered in a layer of Vajra talismans. Just as she was about to reach out to touch the flowers and plants, her wrist suddenly moved. The little blue snake, which had been lying on the ground like a corpse, suddenly crawled down. It opened its bright dog eyes. No, snake eyes, and gave her a happy expression. That should be a happy expression. Its two watery eyes blinked cutely at her. Auber looked at it expressionlessly. The little blue snake slithered down to the ground and rolled around among the flowers and plants, happily nibbling on them. Everyone, they had never seen a snake that liked to eat flowers and plants. The strangest thing was that the originally densely packed and colorful little flowers seemed to have been frightened by the little blue snake. They shrank back listlessly. The little blue snake chased after the fleeing flowers and plants, continuously nibbling on them. Ji Chen, Little Tai Sui, and the others were a little dumbfounded. This little snake seemed to really like these extremely poisonous flowers and plants. Auber expressionlessly looked at the little blue snake nibbling on the flowers and plants. After a while she shouted at the little blue snake, "Come back!" The little blue snake flicked its little tail, turned its little head, and grinned cutely at her. With a whoosh, it swam over at lightning speed. Cuteness my ass! Xiao Mu expressionlessly grabbed it back again, and walked out of the forest that had dispersed. The three people with the saber-scarred man had already been burned to ashes and no longer existed. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal waved his hand and released the surrounding forest. When the wood spirit domain was opened, the little flowers that had been half-eaten by the little blue snakes retreated back into the soil as if they were fleeing, not daring to come out again. Xiao Mu expressionlessly walked forward a few steps before abruptly stomping down with her foot. Goo goo. There seemed to be some green juice sputtering out from the soles of his feet. Xiao Mu squatted down and casually picked up a branch to poke at. In the middle of the green liquid, there was a small reddish-gold flower. It was drooping its small head, looking a little bitter. Auber reached out and pulled out the man-eating flower. As soon as the man-eating flower came out, it was very excited. It opened its huge flower-pot mouth and wanted to swallow the reddish-gold flower under its feet. Jojo grabbed the little man-eating flower's head. Something good. The man-eating flower nodded vigorously. This thing's cultivation level was close to the saint level. It usually only ate high-grade poisonous flowers and poisonous plants. A weak chicken would not care about it. Auber nodded and threw it to the ground. He pointed at the colorful little flowers that had retreated back into the soil. Those are yours. This is just for you to see. The man-eating flower was dumbfounded. If it had eyes, nose and mouth, it would probably be fuming right now. Scam. Oh no, scam. What did he mean by just for it to see? Was it not for Sir to eat? Master's attitude was very bad. Asking for advice. Auber glanced at it indifferently and hooked his finger at the reddish-gold flower. Come. Chapter 3788. Whoosh! The little reddish-gold flower hurriedly jumped onto her white palm and shook its body obsequiously. What a joke! Instead of being swallowed by the man-eating flower, it was better to act cute. The little reddish-gold flower was very beautiful. Its petals and tiny roots were reddish-gold, but the stamen inside was colorful and fragrant. Woof, woof, woof. The three little puppies instantly rushed out, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, wanting to get rid of the flower. The little reddish-gold flower shook its small body very humanly and lay limply on Auber's hand, pretending to be dead. Auber. What kind of weirdos were these? It was one thing for the little blue snake to eat flowers, but that was because these flowers and plants were all highly poisonous after being nurtured by the poison flower king. The little blue snake liked to eat poison, so it wasn't strange for it to eat poisonous flowers and poisonous plants. But what were these three little puppies trying to do now that they had jumped out? These three fellows also specially chose good things to eat. They could even chew on the 2 eggs of the holy beast Swanee. They were clearly 3 weak little puppies, but their way of doing things was quite strange. Auber also didn't understand. She felt that there was something unusual about these 3 strange little puppies. Come here! Auber roared. The 3 little puppies shook their heads and circled around her feet, barking non-stop. They were so noisy. Auber stretched out her leg and lightly kicked one of the little puppies. She said in a bad mood, "Shut up." Auber raised her hand and touched the little reddish-gold flower in her palm. "I'll call you Little Poison from now on. 1 drop." Auber took out an empty bottle from her inner world and expressionlessly said to the little reddish-gold flower. The little flower was also a tactful master. It hurriedly swayed its petals, and a drop of golden liquid suddenly sprayed out from its stamen. Auber sucked it into the porcelain bottle and immediately sealed it with a few talisman seals. This poison didn't have the slightest trace of sweetness, but it was extremely corrosive. If he didn't make a few defensive copies on it, it would definitely corrode the bottle completely, and there was no way it could be stored properly. This flower seemed to be even more poisonous than the man-eating flower. Although it was only a small flower, it was not as big as the man-eating flower. However, in terms of poison and combat prowess, the crimson golden flower was definitely more powerful. With a cold expression, Auber stuffed the poison flower king into his star field. When the little man-eating flower saw that the food in its mouth was gone, it anxiously circled around Auber's feet. Auber sucked it into its palm and shook the porcelain bottle in front of it. "Give me a drop of venom." The little man-eating flower immediately shook its head like a rattledrum. Jojo glared at him fiercely. "Hurry up!" The man-eating flower bitterly opened its trumpet-like petals and spat out a drop of green venom. Auber kept it in a bottle. The little fellow also squeezed out a drop of venom from the little blue snake. The moment the 3 drops of venom mixed together, if she hadn't forcefully used her spiritual power to suppress the bottle, the venom would probably have burst out of the bottle by now. It was really very poisonous. It was enough for her to make 2 cauldrons of corrosive poison pills. After stuffing all these little things into the star field, out of sight, out of mind, Auber kept the sealed bottle of venom in his inner world. He planned to find time to refine a batch of very interesting poisons when he was free. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal looked at the little girl with a slight smile. Chapter 3789. Just as he was about to speak, his expression abruptly changed. He had already swiftly moved to the little girl's side and abruptly yanked her to the side, avoiding a spear that was attacking from the air. With a crisp clang, the tip of the reeds ferociously stabbed into a large tree in the back with a gust of wind, directly collapsing the upper half of the huge tree. Half of the tree fell to the ground with a rumble. Hu Shurchen's eyes deepened, and her gaze sharply shot to the side of the forest. Many men and women in white robes suddenly emerged from there. If they weren't wielding bows and arrows, they were clutching spears. Over 100 people surged out all of a sudden and surrounded them. These people seemed to have appeared out of thin air. They came so abruptly that Hu Shurchen, Little Tai Sui, and the others couldn't help but be slightly dazed. Hu Shurchen's gaze swept over them, and a faint trace of astonishment involuntarily appeared in her eyes. The 100 or so people standing in front of them were all experts at the 6th level of the Divine Realm or above. Even in the Divine Prefecture, experts at the 6th level of the Divine Realm or above were considered upper-middle level experts. Moreover, over 100 of them had inexplicably rushed out at once. It was truly somewhat rare. The crowd parted to the sides, and a tall and handsome man slowly walked toward Auber's group accompanied by 2 beautiful women in white. "Guests from afar. Put away your weapons," the man said indifferently. The white-robed men and women who were originally glaring at them covetously all straightened the bows and spears in their hands and no longer aimed at Auber's group. Honorable guests. The man's gaze paused briefly on the little stoic's expressionless face, and his gaze once again bypassed little Tai Sui, Dao Wuji, and Hu Shurchen. Chup chup chup. The little white squirrel lightly jumped twice on Auber's shoulder, raised its paw, and roared threateningly. Unfortunately, it was such a silly and adorable little thing, so it definitely wouldn't have any lethality. What was even more laughable was that it would have been better if it hadn't opened its mouth. As soon as it opened its mouth, the gazes of the white-robed girls all landed on it. Their eyes were practically lit up by little heart-shaped stars, and they all revealed yearning expressions toward dear Chirpy. What a cute little animal. Is it a little squirrel? I really want to hug you. The white-robed girls subconsciously took a few steps forward, but they were stopped by the two women beside the white-robed man. A handsome man with a slender figure wearing a white robe smiled at the little stoic and the others. This humble one is the Feng clan's current clan head, Feng Chongqing. The little stoic looked at him expressionlessly. If it weren't for this little girl's eyelashes that would flutter once or twice from time to time, Feng Zhongqing would really think that this girl might just be an ice sculpture. He Chen coughed lightly. He had also heard a little about the Phoenix clan. Speaking of which, thousands of years ago, Shurchen's ancestors were a branch of the Phoenix clan. After thousands of years of changes, their clan was getting further and further away from the Phoenix clan's bloodline. Therefore, He Chen did not intend to tell these people that they might have been a family thousands of years ago. Seeing that the little stoic's small cold face was taut and she didn't say anything for a while, he had no choice but to reply, "What business do you have with me? We set up the Poison Flower King at the entrance to guard against the enemy. I wonder which one of you took it away." Feng Zhongqing's voice was low and sweet. Chapter 3790. His attitude was very humble, making people unable to feel any ill will toward him. Instead, his voice seemed to have a slightly bewitching effect, making people involuntarily want to lower their guard upon hearing it. The little stoic glanced at him expressionlessly. "It's mine. Everyone. Cough." Little Tai Sui couldn't resist coughing lightly. This fellow was too concise and comprehensive. The small reddish gold flower she took away just now turned out to be something the Phoenix tribe used as a defensive formation, but now, it was pocketed by the little stoic. This really was little Tai Sui, and the others didn't know what to say. After all, cough, they did indeed snatch someone else's item by force. "It attacked me, so I subdued it," the little stoic added expressionlessly. At first glance, there really wasn't anything wrong. That's right, the flower attacked first. We subdued this flower, so isn't this equivalent to this flower already being ours? Feng Chongqing carefully sized up the stoic face and inexplicably had a feeling of, what should I say? He had the misconception that he couldn't continue speaking. The other members of the Phoenix tribe also looked at each other in dismay. You look at me, I look at you, and then they turned back to look at their clan leader, Feng Chongqing. The atmosphere inexplicably chilled. All of a sudden the corner of Yuan Shurchen's mouth silently twitched. He pretended to cough and said, if there's nothing else, we'll take our leave first." This Phoenix tribe leader, Feng Chongqing, discreetly flickered with wisps of holy power fluctuations. If there were no surprises, he should be a person whose strength was about the same as little Tai Sui's. Judging from the Phoenix tribe's stance, could it be that their entire tribe was at the God Realm? Then perhaps there might be a few other transcendent God Realm elders and consecrators in their tribe? For safety's sake, Yuan Shurchen felt that it was better to leave this dangerous place as soon as possible. "Wait." Feng Chongqing helplessly stretched out his hand to block their path. "I am sorry. That golden saint poisonous flower is our tribe's protective item." The implication was that they should quickly return it. That was their tribe's sacred item, so they couldn't rashly give it to them. Jojo looked at him expressionlessly. Suddenly, a 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron appeared in his hand. Feng Zhongqing's eyes lit up and he couldn't help but cry out, 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron? The group of Phoenix clansmen looked at each other and thought in their hearts, what is the clan leader doing now? Shouldn't he be praising others? Shouldn't he be capturing them as soon as possible and forcing them to hand over the golden saint poisonous flower? Auber's eyes were cold and emotionless. With a flip of his hand, the 3 poisons in the porcelain bottle fell into the small cauldron. Soon after, what dazzled everyone was that she casually took out several medicinal herbs and threw them into the small cauldron. The phoenixes were dumbfounded. The phoenixes had been in seclusion for a long time, but they boasted that they had the best alchemy skills in the world. Even if he had lived in seclusion for many years, his alchemy skills were still inseparable from society. But today when he saw it, he felt that he seemed to be out of touch with the world. Was there anyone who could refine pills so casually? She didn't even weigh the medicinal herbs and directly put them into the medicinal cauldron? Wouldn't the cauldron explode if she did this? Obviously, the small cauldron in the little girl's hand showed no signs of exploding until now. Something was about to appear in it. Chapter 3791. A layer of golden quicksand suddenly jumped out of the cauldron. Like a thin layer of golden sand coat, it nimbly circled around the little girl's palm and slowly formed a quicksand ball. It looked very eye-catching, and all the Phoenix clansmen were stunned. Wow! Several girls in the Phoenix clan couldn't help but clap excitedly. Amazing, amazing, what amazing alchemy skills. It turned out that the little girl didn't refine pills, but poisonous sand. The other members of the Phoenix clan looked at these silly girls speechlessly. Hey, stop admiring her. She ground out a handful of poisonous sand, and her purpose is already very obvious. She's going to feed it to us. This group of people actually applauded the enemy so innocently. They really didn't know if they were spies sent by the enemy. Feng Chongqing saw the little girl holding the ball of poisonous sand in her hand and hurriedly waved his hand. Don't, little girl. If you have something to say, we can discuss it properly. The other members of the Phoenix clan hurriedly nodded. I've already subdued the little poison, Auber explained expressionlessly. It's mine. Everyone. Would it kill you to say a few more words? Feng Chongqing couldn't help but sigh and nod. Mrs. Alchemy skills are extraordinary. That golden saint poisonous flower can indeed play a greater role in your hands. One had to know that although they had let the golden saint poisonous flower guard here for many years, they had never been able to make it spit out a drop of poison. This flower was very spiritual. Cough, the gentle members of the Phoenix clan naturally wouldn't force it. Miss, is your poisonous sand really refined from the golden saint poisonous flower's poison? A girl from the Phoenix clan asked excitedly. No. With a flip of her small hand, Xiao Mu showed the despairing little man-eating flower and the little blue snake to everyone. And their poison. Everyone. They could guarantee with their butts that if their clan leader hadn't suddenly relented, the little girl would definitely have used them to test the poisonous sand. The poison of the blue spirit snake emperor, the corrosive poison of the man-eating flower, and the terrifying poison of the golden saint poisonous flower. There was probably no antidote in this world. Auber looked at them expressionlessly and silently took back the man-eating flower that was tilting its head. Another Phoenix clan girl shouted excitedly. Miss, can I ask you, how did you make the golden saint poisonous flower spit out poison? Auber looked at them strangely for a while. Simple. Everyone looked like they were all ears. Little Tai Sui, Endless Saber, and He Chen's lips twitched involuntarily upon hearing this. They felt that the little girl's next answer would probably make the group of idiots from the Phoenix clan feel like they had nothing to live for. I stepped on it hard and curled my finger at it. Everyone was speechless. If words could be used to express the feelings of the Phoenix clan, it would probably be, fuck. Where did this weirdo come from? They had lived in seclusion for many years. Could it be that the world had evolved into such a state? Did a creature like the little stoic really evolve from humans? The group of Phoenix clansmen all had incredulous expressions as they stared at the girl. The little stoic glanced at them expressionlessly and said coldly, "Move aside." Feng Chongqing reflexively blinked before hastily saying, "Miss, our clan has a request." Chapter 3792. Auber glanced at them aloofly and suddenly pulled out the spear stuck in the ground, throwing it at a youth in the Feng tribe's group. Bam! That spear brushed past the youth's ear and directly smashed into a piece of turquoise behind them, directly shattering it. The Feng tribe youth's handsome face darkened, and he raised his hand to touch it. TCH. A thin trickle of blood dripped down his handsome face. Zhang Fei. Everyone involuntarily exclaimed. This younger brother of the Feng tribe's clan leader had a rather fiery temperament. Just now, he threw a spear at the little girl because of a disagreement. Now, the little girl wanted to get back at him, right? Truly a little fellow who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance, everyone silently thought. It was also very rare to see Feng Zhangfei suffer a setback. Zhachen blinked and walked up to pull the icy-tempered little girl back to his side. He stroked her small head and comforted, "Let's not waste time with them. Let's go and find that little fatty Qi Xianxian later." The little fellow nodded. That's right. Meeting up with Qi Xianxian and the others as soon as possible was the most important matter. Feng Zhongqing hastily went up to stop them again and said sincerely, "Everyone, there is indeed a matter in the tribe that requires the little girl's help. Of course, there will definitely be a reward. Little girl, you're an alchemist, so you must know how precious the phoenix flower is." Arbor originally didn't want to pay attention to this fellow, but her small ears clearly twitched when she heard the words, phoenix flower. Feng Zhongqing was a quick-witted fellow. He could clearly sense that although the little stoic was expressionless, the quick-wittedness that flashed through her eyes indicated that she cared about the phoenix flower. He hastily continued to entice the little stoic. The phoenix flower is a saint-rank medicinal ingredient, and its preciousness lies in the fact that as long as the phoenix flower is refined into a liquid and a drop is added every time you refine pills, you can guarantee a 100% success rate. I believe that every alchemist and physician should know this. Arbor expressionlessly looked at Feng Zhongqing. Feng Zhongqing instantly had the misconception that he wanted to break down. This stoic baby. You won't die even if you give her a little more expression, right? Why couldn't you see anything on this little fellow's face? You simply couldn't see any emotion on her face. Whatever happiness, anger, helplessness, or admiration, there was none. There was only facial paralysis. Which family raised such a child? Didn't they feel sad looking at her every day? She was so beautiful and cute, but she was expressionless. Following behind Feng Chongqing, the two slightly older girls from the Phoenix clan hurriedly persuaded Arbor. "Miss, as an alchemist, you must be very clear about the effects of the phoenix flower. We don't need to elaborate on this point. If you're willing to help the Phoenix clan will contribute a phoenix flower to you, too." Just as the two women finished speaking, they heard a cold and crisp voice. Feng Zhongfei covered the small wound on his face. His eyes narrowed as he said unhappily, "Don't push your luck." The little stoic turned around and ran off. She couldn't be bothered to waste her breath on Feng Zhongfei. Feng Zhongqing. What a brat with character. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he hurriedly said, "2 flowers it is. Eldest brother." Feng Zhongfei gloomily and angrily glanced at his elder brother. All right. You're already over 100 years old. Don't be so calculative with a little girl." Feng Zhongqing smiled gently. Chapter 3793. Feng Zhongfei's expression was gloomy. The Phoenix clan lived in seclusion all year round. In fact, they were all very simple people. Feng Zhongfei was no exception. He only felt that after a few hundred years, these secular people seemed to be even more difficult to get along with than what his grandfather had described. "Miss, friends, please follow me," Feng Zhongfei said politely. "Miss, your refining skills are unparalleled in the world. This time, I hope you can help save our clan's sacred object. Let's take a look first." "What do you mean?" Feng Zhongfei couldn't help but shout. This guy meant to take a look first and see if he could save it? Zhongfei. Feng Zhongqing glanced helplessly at his younger brother. Arbor couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Feng Zhongfei. Since she had agreed to the clan leader's invitation, the little girl and the other 3 followed him to the Phoenix clan's territory. Feng Zhongqing led the group and walked a few steps. He looked back at the little girl and the others and said with a smile, "Follow our steps. Don't take the wrong path." After walking around the forest repeatedly for a while, the expressionless Sir Jojo suddenly found that the area in front of him had widened. A towering ancient tree that was estimated to be thousands of years old appeared in front of them. A jade stone appeared in Feng Zhongqing's hand. He flicked it into the trunk of the ancient tree and embedded it. Tiny circular vortexes slowly spread out from the tree's body. In a flash, the giant tree slowly shook and a small door opened from the bottom. Arbor knew very well that all of this was just a smoke screen of the Phoenix clan. Countless arrays had been set up in this place. It wasn't as simple as a defensive talisman array. However, this was the clan's private matter. Sir Jojo wasn't interested in studying it. She was only here to make a deal. Once the deal was done, she would leave immediately. She had no interest in studying the Phoenix clan's habitat in depth. "Please." Feng Zhongqing was polite. He smiled and nodded at the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal and the others. When the group walked through the small door in the tree hole, their eyes suddenly widened as if they had turned into another world. It was as if he had walked through an ordinary door and walked into a world of exotic flowers and grasses. Flowers bloomed everywhere in front of them, and their fragrance overflowed. In the distance there was a wide circular lake. Under the sunlight, the lake shimmered with a faint green light. Everyone took a deep breath and felt a refreshing smell coming from the air. They felt refreshed, as if they had just eaten a vitality pill. All the pores on their bodies opened up. Auber narrowed his eyes and scanned his surroundings. He found it rather novel. This place was not an illusion, but a real space. He did not expect that in the depths of Phoenix Wood, there would be such a divine domain that was sealed off and used as a place for cultivation. That's right, the habitat of the Wind Clan was a very rare god domain. No wonder their clansmen were all above the god realm. It turned out that there was such a unique cultivation treasure. Yuan Shurchen also smiled and looked at them. This place is not bad. Feng Zhangqing nodded. This is a divine realm that our ancestors found. At that time, for the sake of safety, all kinds of formations were set up outside. There were many ancient formations that should have been lost in the world by now. The group followed Feng Zhangqing and walked inside. They saw many Phoenix Clan disciples meditating and cultivating around the lake. On the circular lake, looking from afar, there was a small green island located in the center of the lake. Chapter 3794. Many gorgeous and colorful birds were slowly flying around the small island in the center of the lake, chirping incessantly. That's our sacred land. Feng Chongqing said with a smile. The sacred relic grows on it. However, it fell ill several hundred years ago. Now, it's getting weaker by the day. At the mention of this sick holy relic, everyone lowered their heads, looking listless and pitiful. Auber uttered an "oh." Everyone. What was going on? They suddenly had an impulse to not continue chatting with this little stoic. Feng Zhangfei even rolled his eyes at the stoic without concealment. I'm telling you, if you not only fail to cure our sacred relic, but also worsen its condition, you'll have to pay with your life. After Feng Zhangfei finished speaking, Feng Chongqing turned around to glare at his younger brother before hastily saying, Little miss, don't feel burdened. Although our sacred relic's condition is very bad, it probably won't get any worse. Your pill medicine skills are so good, so you'll definitely be able to help it. Even if you can't help, we won't blame you. This is probably our clan's fate. After saying this, Feng Chongqing let out a long sigh. The little stoic then uttered an "oh." Everyone. Feng Chongqing also wanted to cry. Why didn't this child like to talk? Would she lose a strand of hair or something if she talked to him? It wasn't that the little stoic was unwilling to talk, but she simply didn't understand the current situation. She hadn't even seen their sacred relic yet, so there was nothing to talk about. Feng Chongqing led Auber and the others to the lakeside and released a talisman from his sleeve. In an instant, a long winding bridge constructed from rainbows extended from the lakeside to the island in the center of the lake. Auber glanced at it. This Feng tribe's foundation was quite deep. At this time, many Feng clansmen had already been attracted by them. In the Feng tribe's habitat, the Feng clansmen generally built tree houses to live in, and the tree holes below were dug to store their belongings. The Feng tribe liked clean and gorgeous things, so their tree houses were built very gorgeously. The patriarch's treehouse was built like a small palace. These phoenixes usually stayed in the clan's land to cultivate. It was rare to see outsiders enter. When everyone heard the news, they all gathered around the lakeside. Even the group of people who were meditating by the lakeside were woken up by the commotion. The moment the rainbow bridge appeared, the members of the Phoenix clan clamored to go over together. Patriarch Feng Zhangqing was obviously a very gentle leader. He turned around and said to the noisy clansmen, I'm going to take the guests over now. If you want to come over, be quiet. The little stoic expressionlessly stepped onto the rainbow bridge and pattered towards the island in the middle of the lake. Seeing this, Feng Zhangfei muttered, I wonder who owes a few million spirit coins. Everyone followed Feng clan leader to the island in the middle of the lake. It was only then that the little stoic realized that due to visual effects, they felt that the island in the middle of the lake was extremely small when they were at the lakeside. However, the moment he stepped onto the island, he discovered that the island was not small at all. A towering ancient tree grew in the center. It was shaped like a phoenix with its wings folded and its head and tail joined together to form a round shape. In an instant, it gave rise to a shocking feeling in everyone's hearts. Phoenix wood. Chapter 3795. This truly was a rare phoenix wood. Unfortunately, the tree itself was already in a half-withered state. The scarlet leaves on the tree trunk had long disappeared, and the withered wood was drooping in a disorderly manner. It looked very listless at first glance. Aubrey took a few steps forward and pressed her small hand against the withered black tree trunk. A vigorous vitality burrowed into the phoenix wood's body. In a split second, it made those withered branches sway as if they had come to life. A faint light red glow abruptly drilled out of the tree trunk and disappeared in a flash. The two withered branches that were originally drooping on the ground suddenly moved and wrapped around Sir Jojo like a human's arm. The Phoenix clansmen were shocked at the same time. Feng Zhangfei's voice stuttered. "BB Big Brother, what's going on?" Who the hell was this little girl? They had never seen the Phoenix wood so close to someone before. Why was it acting so abnormally today? This Phoenix wood had probably existed here for more than a few hundred to 1,000 years. It was the first time these Phoenix clansmen had seen the Phoenix wood so willing to get close to someone. Feng Zhangqing's eyes, however, contained a hint of excitement. He could tell that although the little girl's movements were very secretive just now, however, he could still clearly see that there was a trace of surging vitality around her small hand that was pressed against the tree trunk. The little girl should be a cultivator of the wood spirit origin, and her wood spirit origin was probably at a very high level. How high was it? To the extent that even the phoenix wood was willing to get close to her. Xiao Mu was also a bit fond of this wilted phoenix tree. For some reason, when she saw it, it was as if she saw the former sapling. The sapling was even more wilted than it back then. It was only a small stalk, but now it was thriving and would soon grow into a towering tree. "Hello little," cough, "little girl." Feng Zhangqing originally almost blurted out the words little stoic, but then he coughed to cover it up and asked in all seriousness, "Little girl, can this 1,000-year-old phoenix wood still be saved?" 1,000-year-old phoenix wood, Aubrey muttered to herself. He Chen, Tai Sui Dao, and Limitless Blade looked at each other, silently exchanging a look of speechlessness. What was the meaning of this? This was what it meant to get whatever the little girl wanted. It was pure luck. Even though the phoenix wood in front of him looked half dead. But in this world, was there anything that Jojo could not save? Since Jojo had saved the phoenix wood, it was only logical that he would be able to obtain a piece of 1,000-year-old phoenix wood and 2 phoenix flowers for free. 5,000 points and first place in the preliminaries were all in one go. There was a 99% chance that the heavenly axiom was Jojo's relative. Otherwise, why would the heavenly axiom hand him a pillow every time Jojo dozed off? Yes, a 1,000-year-old phoenix wood. Feng Zhangqing said excitedly, Little girl, can this 1,000-year phoenix wood still be saved?" Xiao Mu nodded her small head firmly. There's hope. The group of phoenixes were all smiles at that moment. Everyone gave the little stoic classmate a sincere and friendly smile. Even Feng Zhangfei, who had been looking at the little stoic as if her nose was her nose and her eyes weren't her eyes, instantly stopped talking. But it will take time. However long it takes, it doesn't matter. Miss, if you have any special needs, feel free to tell us. Chapter 3796. 3 days. Feng Zhangqing was slightly startled. 3 days? What did this little girl mean? Could this dying phoenix would be revived in just 3 days? Was that possible? "You all must leave," the little stoic said expressionlessly. "I need an absolutely quiet space." Sir Jojo felt off all over, mainly because he was being stared at like a national treasure by a bunch of idiots. Feng Zhangqing naturally didn't have any objections. He nodded repeatedly and said, "All right, don't worry. When the time comes, my clansmen will all leave Lake Heart Island." Aubrey nodded. This was great and would avoid a lot of trouble. Feng Zhangqing then turned to look at the trio and said with a smile, "There is a phoenix spring southeast of Lake Heart Island. If the 3 of you don't have anything to do these few days, you can go there to meditate and cultivate." Aubrey imperceptibly swept a glance over the Phoenix clansmen and discovered that these guys' eyes immediately lit up when they heard the words, Phoenix Spring. Evidently, it should be a good place to go. Since that was the case, Then she should also go sightseeing. She thought this in her mind, but her small face was completely expressionless. Her large black eyes glanced at Feng Zhongqing and his brother standing across from her and saw that they were also looking at her. The little fellow then asked with a taut face, "Is there anything else?" "What the hell?" Feng Zhongfei couldn't resist rolling his eyes. This little fellow's tone and attitude made them feel like, "Why aren't you idlers scramming yet?" They really had seen a ghost. Arbor was stupefied. "I need absolute silence here. Even if you hear any commotion, don't come up to disturb me. The implication was that you bunch of buffoons should stay far away from me and don't come here to make noise." Feng Zhongqing and the others were a bit shocked. Although the Phoenix clansmen had lived in seclusion for a long time, they were also very clear that if a large reclusive clan like theirs truly walked into the secular world, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. Not to mention that everyone was extremely respectful to them. There were at least 2,000 of them in their clan, and all of them were experts above the divine realm. If they walked onto the continent, it would absolutely be a huge blow to the 3 provinces, alright? But this little girl didn't seem to care about them at all. It really made their teeth hurt. Actually, the little girl only wanted to chase them away so that she could tour around Phoenix Island and look around. Needless to say, after those noisy members of the Phoenix clan left, the little girl's cold expression instantly became much better. "Jojo, why do you dislike them so much?" Everlasting Blade asked weakly. "You're making my head hurt," so Jojo said grumpily. Limitless Blade and Ji-Chen looked at each other and quickly shut their mouths. If they quarreled, they would also be despised by the little girl. However, after chasing away those masters, the little girl seemed to have taken over the island as a king. She waved her small hand and said to them, "Let's go. Let's walk around." As soon as she stepped onto this small island, she felt that the divine power on this island was many times higher than on the land where the phoenixes lived. If he could cultivate for a few days in such a dense divine domain, his cultivation would definitely soar. Why aren't those Phoenix clansmen cultivating here? The little girl asked curiously. The concentration of divine power at the lakeside where they were was much lower than here. The divine power here is almost close to saint power. Chapter 3797. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal said faintly, "If they cultivate in a place where saint power is distributed for a long time, their foundation will be damaged. If the divine power is too dense, there will be a backlash?" Arbor looked confused. She never seemed to have any negative effects. No matter where she cultivated, there would only be a difference in speed. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal glanced at her silently. He knew why the little girl was puzzled. He said faintly, "You are not an ordinary person." Pfft. Dao Wuji laughed and immediately closed his mouth expressionlessly. He looked like he was saying, "I didn't laugh just now." With their cultivation, staying here for more than 12 hours is not good for them, the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal said with a smile. Feng Chongqing is an exception. Oh, in that case, even if he didn't chase them away, those nagging members of the Phoenix clan couldn't stay on this island for long. Feng Chongqing is an immortal supremacy, so he can stay here and cultivate at any time. The little girl blinked and glanced at them. "What about you?" "I think clan leader Feng was right. There is indeed a good holy region in the southeast. It seems to be worth cultivating there for a few days." Abba's eyes lit up. She quickly waved at them. "Let's go." But little Tai Sui pointed at the phoenix tree that was hugging the little girl with 2 pitch-black branches. The phoenix tree seemed to be clinging to the little girl and wouldn't let go no matter what. Sir Jojo raised his hand and patted one of the branches of the phoenix tree. He muttered, "Let go first. I will send them over first and come back later. Don't worry, I will definitely save you." The little girl reached out and stroked the trunk of the phoenix tree. Definitely. Regardless of whether her original purpose was to obtain the 1,000-year-old phoenix tree or the heart of the 1,000-year-old phoenix tree, she had inexplicably liked this withered tree when she saw it in Arbor. She just followed her heart and wanted to save it, regardless of whether she gained anything or not. The phoenix tree seemed to understand the little girl's words. It loosened its branches and let the little girl out. Arbor's eyes curved slightly. Let me think about where to start. This phoenix would have been sick for a long time. With the little bit of life force in her small body, it would be difficult to restore this phoenix wood tree. If little tree was awake, then there must be a way. However, Wasn't the little tree still diligently cultivating in seclusion to grow? She couldn't disturb it. Should he turn back and let little soil nourish the tree first before watering it with water? After that, she used the exuberant life force in her body to help it recover properly. Of course, this was not as fast and reliable as Chocho doing it personally, but it should at least be effective. And then she could open her divine eyes and go in to see what was wrong with this phoenix wood. Jojo. Ah! Arbor regained his senses and glanced at Yuan Shurchen. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal raised his hand and patted her head helplessly. Those 2 eggs of yours are jumping out again. And 3 little puppies Little Tai Sui and Dao Wuji silently added at the end. Arbor took a closer look. Sure enough, the 2 eggs and the 3 little puppies seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. Their eggs flew and the puppies jumped, bouncing all the way forward. When he saw a pool of green spring water surrounded by piled-up stones, he was stunned. Those guys looked as if they had seen a relative they hadn't seen in 800 years. Plop, plop, plop. Chapter 3798. After a few loud splashes, the 3 puppies and the 2 Bion eggs all jumped into the water, completely burying themselves in the spring water. The 2 eggs had been in the water and in the fire. After all, they were 2 sacred beast eggs, so they naturally wouldn't be in any danger. But the 3 puppies looked so weak. They wouldn't drown in the spring water, right? Arbor hurriedly took a few steps forward. With a sullen face, she stood by the spring and scolded, Ada aher asan. Little Tai Sui. Every time it heard Lord Jojo call out the names of these beasts, it always felt a little funny. She was too lazy to come up with names, so she just called them whatever was easy to pronounce and popular. With a few splashes, the 3 puppies crawled in the spring water under them, revealing their 3 little heads. They looked at their little master in confusion and barked twice. Arbor rolled her eyes and looked them up and down for a while. She couldn't help but feel a little strange. She turned to look at the expressionless venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. Her eyes were filled with curiosity. Peach Blossom, didn't you say that the Phoenix clan members can't stay here for long? Naturally, they wouldn't have the guts to soak in the spring water rich in sacred power. Even she could feel that the closer they got to the Phoenix Spring, the richer the sacred power. When they reached the Phoenix Spring, they couldn't feel the divine power at all. It was obvious that the Phoenix Spring was a true sacred region. No wonder the Phoenix clan leader said that Ji Chan and the other 2 could come here to cultivate. It was indeed a good place for them to cultivate. Ji Chen smiled at the little girl. Obviously, these 3 puppies aren't ordinary dogs. Dao Wuji and Little Tai Sui tried their best to suppress their smiles and nodded. At this moment, Holy Sun Mi Yen, Fairy Ginkgo, Fairy Peony, Thin Tuchuo, and the Luo brothers who were cultivating in the star domain also strongly requested to come out. It was rare to feel such rich sacred power fluctuations. It would be stupid not to come out. As a result, the Phoenix Spring was filled with people. The spring water was also occupied by the 2 eggs and the 3 puppies. Arbor glanced at them and turned around speechlessly. She waved her hand. I'll come and pick you up in 3 days. A large group of people was making a ruckus. How troublesome. Holy Sun Mi Yen looks back at her. What is she doing? You're too noisy. Of course, Everlasting Blade answered him. Holy Sun Mi Yen turned to look at him in confusion. I haven't said a word since I came out. Little Tai Sui made a hand gesture and expressionlessly said, Now that so many of you have come out, even the air has become somewhat thinner. This is how noisy it is. Everyone was speechless. Is it our fault? Just how much did Jojo despise him? After the little girl made arrangements for He-chan and the others, she no longer cared about how they were cultivating. He hopped back to the phoenix tree. As soon as he stepped into the range of the phoenix tree, he could clearly feel the tree's joyous aura. It seemed like this withered tree also welcomed her very much. She was a young lady who had connections with trees. Lord Jojo secretly showed off. He reached out to summon Little Water and Little Earth and gave them a few instructions. Little Earth Lump ran forward with its 2 short legs and drilled into the roots of the phoenix tree. Its voice came from below the roots. Master Silver, the roots of this phoenix tree are buried very, very deep. I have to go down and take a look to find the source. Otherwise, I won't be able to see clearly. Chapter 3799. It's fine. Just lie there. I'll see what's going on later. Arbor hurriedly stopped it. Since she wasn't sure if there was any danger in the depths of the ground, she naturally wouldn't let the little dirt lump take the risk. Yes, master. The little dirt lump answered obediently. Arbor asked Lord Sacred Water to release some water to nourish the phoenix wood. Then she instructed the two little ones. Wait a moment. I need to use my divine sense to check the specific situation of this phoenix wood. Don't move until I tell you to. Oh. The two little ones responded obediently again. Arbor then sat down cross-legged and focused her mind. She gathered her divine sense into her eyes and opened her divine eye, carefully looking at the roots of the phoenix wood. The roots of this phoenix wood were indeed as Little Dirt had said. They were intertwined and very complicated. Her divine sense went dozens of meters underground, but she still couldn't see the end. She couldn't help but exclaim loudly in her heart. This wasn't just 1,000-year-old phoenix wood? Arbor became slightly excited. With such a huge root system developing, this should be a 10,000-year-old phoenix wood tree. Although she didn't know what this phoenix would have experienced, seeing a 10,000-year-old holy tree about to wither after encountering such a thing really made her feel a little uncomfortable. The little girl made up her mind to save this thing no matter what. She released her divine sense inch by inch and explored the depths of the ground. It was endless. After an unknown amount of time, a faint light naturally appeared on Arbor's body. Little Water Child and Chirpy, who were squatting beside her, became a little worried. Will Master be okay? Little Water Child's transparent little hand hammered Chirpy's big white fluffy head. The little white squirrel shook its head repeatedly. No. Then why does it feel like Master has been looking for a long time? Little Water Child had a serious expression. It had indeed been a long time. The little white squirrel also knew that Master had used her divine sense to investigate the actual situation underground. It had been about 2 hours. If it were anyone else who came to check, they would have already exhausted their divine sense and fainted. However, the little Master who was sitting there, other than his face being slightly pale, did not seem to have suffered any special injuries. The two little ones did not dare to carelessly call out to her, lest they disturb her and make things worse. Just like that, he was on tenterhooks for almost 4 hours. Arbor suddenly opened his eyes and spat out a mouthful of blood. The enchanting strands of blood landed on the roots of the phoenix tree, producing a sizzling sound. Immediately, the entire phoenix tree began to shake. Master! Little Water Child and Chochio were almost scared to death by her. Arbor raised his hand and said calmly, I'm fine. It was just that he had overused his divine sense. It seemed that the limit of her divine sense consumption was around 4 hours. Continuously consuming her divine sense would make her physically and mentally exhausted, and her divine sense would reach a state of exhaustion. But soon, she could feel a warm current flowing into her chest and abdomen, washing her meridians. At the same time, spiritual energy was slowly condensing and gathering in the depths of her consciousness. The speed at which her divine sense was gathering was a little fast. At least, Arbor felt that if other people were to reach the same level of exhaustion as her, they might not be able to recover as fast as her. The withered branches of the phoenix tree shook rapidly. Suddenly, something jumped up from the roots. Chapter 3800. A small ball of sky-blue crystalline substance suddenly flew to Arbor's fingers. Arbor was slightly stunned. She looked at the faint blue, soft ball on her fingertips and couldn't react for a long time. This was the frost dew that had the natural effect of refreshing one's mind? Arbor had an uncertain expression. The main thing was that this was too surprising. What was the frost dew? Even she had only seen a few records of it in the medicine codex. It was a sacred medicine that had always existed in legends and could improve one's divine sense. For me. Lord Jojo reached out and placed his hand on the phoenix wood's trunk. His eyes lit up slightly. Then wait a little longer. When I recover, I'll go down and help you get rid of that thing. Lord Jojo had already discovered the abnormality when her divine sense reached the bottom just now. The bottom of the phoenix wood had actually been hollowed out by an extremely bold little beast. That fellow had even built a nest there. Over the years, it had continuously absorbed vitality from the phoenix wood's body. Its appearance was also very strange. It had a bird's head and a snake's tail. Its entire body was covered in tiny black lumps and it looked rather ugly. When Arbor's divine sense stared at it, it seemed to sense something and even raised its head to glance in her direction. Its perceptivity was not bad, but that was all it could do. Arbor was most annoyed by things that didn't work hard and wanted to take shortcuts. They didn't hesitate to hurt others. Just like that disgusting talisman master Tan Fa of the Clear Sky sect. He couldn't do anything but put a blood curse talisman on people. He used people as furnaces to cultivate and stripped their bloodline power, essence, and spirit for his own use. It was simply nauseating to reap without sowing. How could there be such a good thing in the world that one could obtain power without doing anything? If everyone was like this, wouldn't the laws of the heavenly Tao be messed up? Why did the world fear and hate talisman masters so much? Was it because of talisman masters themselves? No, it was because some evil talisman masters couldn't control their selfishness at all. So the world classified talisman masters as evil. Arbor had no intention of subduing this strange vermin bird at all. She just wanted to kill it. Moreover, it was so ugly that even Jojo couldn't be bothered to look at it. The frost dew slowly floated into the air and seeped into her body through the space between her eyebrows. She could feel the faint chi of the clear spring flowing under her skin and quickly seeping into her conscious. His already dried-up conscious was suddenly infused with a tyrannical force. At the same time that his consciousness was refreshed, his consciousness began to revolve rapidly, rushing towards the direction of the 6th level of consciousness. The effect of the frost dew on recovering consciousness was really too good. Not only did it fill up her originally dried-up conscious pool in less than a quarter of an hour, it also made her already loosened divine sense even more powerful. Therefore, it could be said that using one's divine sense more often could also improve the effect of training. Especially when Xiao Mu replenished a ball of clear frost dew after exhausting her divine conscious to the point of exhaustion just now. That feeling truly was exceptionally satisfying. Lord Jojo opened his eyes and reached out a small hand to touch the phoenix wood. Then he muttered to himself, "Wait, I'll prepare to go down now." Seeing a branch of the phoenix would entangle the corner of her clothes, the little fellow hurriedly comforted him. "Don't worry. That ugly monster below can't do anything to me." Chapter 3801. Of course, she had full confidence in saying that. That ugly fellow below, judging from its battle prowess, was only a divine beast that had just reached the divine realm. How could Sir Jojo not be able to kill it? She eagerly stretched out her little fist and called out to the little lump of dirt under the roots. "Little dirt, take me down." The lump of dirt immediately jumped up and used its big head to break open the ground. It dug and quickly penetrated into the soil below. Little water child looked at it expressionlessly. "Master, I'll go too." It leaped and Chocho hurriedly followed. The two little ones hung on her body together. The little lump of dirt flattened itself and wrapped itself around Sir Jojo like a roll. Arbor poked its head out of the roll and asked with a stoic face, "What do I look like?" "Like the meat filling in a burrito," the water child replied honestly. Sir Jojo immediately retracted his head and muttered to himself, "Fortunately, Jojo's lotus isn't here. It definitely didn't look good like this." "Master, sit tight." Arbor was stuck in the roll and said unhappily, "Your master, I'm standing." "What sit?" Being wrapped in that layer of dirt, it really wanted to dig 2 holes in it and see what was going on outside. "Master, go ahead. Little dirt doesn't hurt." Speaking of which, all the soil in the world could be absorbed by the little lump of dirt, just like how any water could be swallowed by holy water. So digging a hole or something was really too convenient for the little lump of dirt. It just had to dig in and casually dig a little, and the sand around it would obediently move to the sides. The reason why it wanted to wrap Sir Jojo inside was that the lump of dirt was worried that Sir Jojo would be covered in dirt, not that it was afraid that the surrounding soil would drown Jojo. If one looked at it from afar, they could see that this holy land was like a moving arrow of earth, drilling a hole in the ground. Everywhere it passed, the soil would retreat, and it didn't take long for it to reach a few hundred meters underground. The roots of the phoenix tree were everywhere. Layers upon layers of intertwined roots intertwined together, but these roots were all dark green, and many of them had broken or rotted away. Looking at it with his divine sense was not as shocking as seeing it in person. Arbor stood in the middle of the intertwining roots, like a tiny ant lying in the middle of a forest. It was so small that it was almost pitiful. "Master, this fellow is asleep." The little dirt lump stretched out 2 small hands and 2 small feet, and a mysterious smile appeared on its small, square and bumpy face. "Let's go together right now and slaughter it together." The dirt lump muttered into Xiao Mu's ear. The little water baby couldn't help but roll its eyes. It's such a big lump. If it fights here, then what about the Phoenix Wood's roots? Wouldn't that be a huge blow to his vitality? Arbor nodded and looked up. Just now, the small lump of dirt had swooped down with her all the way. But now, it had already opened up a slender tunnel from top to bottom that could allow people to climb up quickly. That would do. Arbor reached out and took out a bag of red and green feathers from its inner world, and stuck it to its head and arms. The little dirt lump, the little water baby, and Cho-Cho all looked at her with expressions of looking at a weirdo. In the end, the little water baby couldn't hold it in. Master, what are you doing? Is it like it's kind? The three of them shook their heads in unison. Chapter 3802. You're so beautiful, Master Silva. The water child praised sincerely. The little dirt lump couldn't say anything more flattering, so it just nodded furiously at the side. Even if Master Silver was covered in feathers, it was still so beautiful. Abba, I'll go lure it up. Why do these feathers look so familiar to me? The little lump of dirt mumbled to itself. The feathers of the blue wan and blazing fire. The water child rolled its eyes. Every time they shed feathers, Master Silver would follow behind and silently pick them up. The little dirt lump immediately showed an expression of admiration. Master Silver is a model of diligent and thrifty housekeeping. These feathers can be exchanged for medicinal herbs at the pharmacy or sold for money. This didn't seem like a compliment? Arbor had already gone a little further at this time, and stood in front of the bird-headed snake-tail beast. Looking at it up close, it realized that the little black lumps on its body were really ugly, and there seemed to be a faint green juice in each lump. The little dirt lump's face was also lumpy, but it was just cute. No matter if it turned into a square or a rhombus shape or whatever, its lumpy face was much cuter than most people's. This bird-headed beast in front of it was too ugly, too ugly. Arbor secretly complained, and pulled out a clump of soil from the side, and threw it at the bird-headed beast's big head. Patter! The bird-headed beast immediately woke up, and a pair of fierce little eyes glared at Arbor. It immediately straightened its snake tail, and its little eyes flashed as it stared at Arbor. Who are you? Damn, this beast could actually speak human language. But it made sense, this was a guy that had evolved into a divine beast, so logically speaking, it should be able to transform. Arbor looked at it with a cold little face, and suddenly moved its feather-covered arm. You're from the Blue Luan tribe? The bird-headed beast shook its head. Why do you have blue luan feathers and blazing phoenix feathers on your body? What was going on? Was this person mutated? That's right. I'm the descendant of the blue luan and fire phoenix. Arbor lied with a straight face, bullying this beast that had just entered the god level and hadn't seen the world. Xiao Mu continued. I've taken a fancy to your lair. Scram. Chirp chirp, little water and little earth. The bird-headed snake beast was furious. It had been squatting in this nest for hundreds of years. Don't think that you're so great just because you're the descendant of the blue luan and fire phoenix. How dare you rob my lair? You must be tired of living. Come up if you have the guts. If you win, I'll scram. If you lose, you scram. Arbor hooked his finger at the beast and took the lead to leap out of the narrow tunnel. The bird-headed snake was indeed very straightforward. How could it stand Arbor's provocation? It swam up quickly, but suddenly stopped halfway. At this time, Arbor had already jumped up to the ground. After waiting for a long time for that guy to come up, he couldn't help but feel a little angry. She poked her head out of the cave and roared, Bird-headed beast, are you dead? I won't fall for it. You're lying to me. You've been shedding feathers all the way. You're not the descendant of the blue luan and fire phoenix at all. You're a human in disguise. You must have gathered a group of people and are waiting for me up there. Arbor? What's going on? Why did this guy suddenly become enlightened? Arbor looked at the feathers on his body, took them off, and put them back in place. With a whoosh, he jumped back into the cave. From afar, he looked at that guy coldly. You think I can't do anything to you if you don't come out? Arbor's eyes rolled, and a plan came to her mind. Chapter 3804. But once it foolishly climbed up, it would definitely be out of luck. Bah! Did it think it was stupid? It stayed near the roots and refused to go up no matter what. Let's see what this fellow can do to it. Seriously, it was too fucking torturous. The smell of the pill and medicine really made its heart itch unbearably. The most ridiculous thing was that it originally wanted to quickly fall asleep and ignore the fragrance. Unexpectedly, the pill fragrance kept drilling into its mouth and nose. Even when it was asleep, it couldn't resist it. It was really unbearable. Endure, endure, endure. It had to endure. If this fellow knew that the deceitful Charles had arranged more than 10 basin-sized medicinal soup pots at the entrance of the cave, it would naturally emit the fragrance and permeate the soil. It would probably go crazy on the second day. Arbor woke up in high spirits after a good night's sleep and started a new round of pharmaceutical work. On this day, Arbor specialized in refining poisons. In any case, she had already collected enough poisonous flowers and poisonous herbs. For the entire day, Arbor had been fiddling with her 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron. After refining until night, she suddenly realized that the 6th star on the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron had lit up. The little girl couldn't help but be overjoyed. Her 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron had taken another step forward. She could very clearly feel that within the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron, there was a faint fluctuation of the artifact spirit's thoughts, revealing its gratitude to the little master. Haha. Could it be that the artifact spirit would appear the moment all the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron lit up? The little fellow stroked her small cauldron while thinking about the good things in her heart. However, the movements of her hands didn't stop. She continued to multitask and continued to work on her poison refining work. If the previous medicinal fragrance was able to make the bird-headed snake beast endure, then the current medicinal fragrance was able to make the bird-headed snake endure. The fragrance of the poison almost made the bird-headed beast go berserk. With so many special poisonous fragrances mixed together, the bird-headed snake beast in the nest couldn't help but drool. Wu life was too torturous. It smelled so many delicious things, but none of them were for it. That human girl should be a devil. The bird-headed beast's eyes bulged as it secretly racked its brains. It secretly made up its mind that when the little girl fell asleep late at night, it would swim up and swallow the poison. The little girl had refined so many poisons. After he swallowed all of them, his strength would definitely increase greatly. At that time, even if that guy came to help, he wouldn't have to be afraid. On this day, not only did Xiao Mu refine over 100 bottles of poison pills, but she also produced several dozen pots of poison liquid and poison powder. She placed the pots, bowls, ladles, and basins in a row at the cave entrance before going to rest and sleep. If you don't take the bait today, I'll make you pronounce my name backwards. The little girl was pleased with herself. She leaned against the phoenix wood's roots, turned over, and hugged a branch of the phoenix wood to sleep obediently. I'll definitely kill you today, the little stoic thought to herself. I'll let you reap without sowing, and I'll let you gnaw on the phoenix wood. The little girl had already thought of how to deal with this bird-headed beast. The latter half of the night was very quiet. The bird-headed snake beast, which had been stimulated by the special aroma of the poison pill's venom to the point that it couldn't sleep properly, finally couldn't hold it in any longer. It followed the spiraling tunnel and crawled up. As it crawled, its small eyes vigilantly emitted a green light. It paused from time to time, preparing to flee down at any moment. Humph, this little human was probably already sound asleep and unconscious. Wait until it released some poison and let her sleep even more deeply. Chapter 3805. This treacherous bird-headed beast climbed to the top of the cave and only stuck out half of its head. It immediately saw a circle of soup pots placed near the entrance of the cave. Its eyes instantly emitted layers of green light. It was so happy that it wanted to sing loudly. Wow, isn't this delicious food delivered to my door? After drinking so much poison, its physical strength would definitely be promoted by several levels. At that time, it would no longer be a beast that had just entered the deity realm. When its realm stabilized, a few mere humans would be of no use. Perhaps, it could even eat the heart of the 10,000-year-old phoenix tree. At that time, it might even break through to the transcendent realm in an instant. Ha 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 ha. This fellow was extremely happy. Its bird head moved and poked out of the cave. It stretched out its beak to peck at the basin full of poisonous sand. Wow! Delicious! This basin of poisonous sand was simply too wonderful. This was simply the most unique delicacy in the world. Bang! The bird's beak seemed to have knocked against an iron plate, and it almost became crooked. The bird-headed snake beast almost cried. It was too fucking painful. Its mouth was almost crippled. This girl's thoughts were too vicious. This seemingly unconcealed medicinal basin actually had a defensive talisman array reinforced? Under the night sky, who would pay attention to a thin layer of defensive talisman array? The bird-headed beast naturally could not see it clearly. The bird-headed snake beast hurriedly climbed out of the cave with a fierce glint in its eyes. It was only because it was not prepared that it was shaken away by this talisman array. Look at how it used its iron spike tail to break this damn defensive talisman array. In the blink of an eye, the bird-headed snake beast's tail flew and landed on the ground with a muffled bang. Pain, 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 pain. Fuck, this is too painful. The bird-headed beast looked back with a dumbfounded expression. With this glance, its fucking bird eyes were about to pop out. The pots and pans that were originally full of pots and pans on the ground were now gone. The little girl was standing behind it, looking at it with a cold gaze. It was tricked. The bird-headed snake beast was about to shrink back into the cave when it suddenly realized that the cave entrance had been sealed by 3 layers of defensive talisman arrays. It had no way out. It could only fight. A fierce glint appeared in the bird-headed snake beast's eyes. Did this human brat think that he was afraid of her? There were sparks in its small eyes. When it saw that there were no helpers behind the little girl, its courage was boosted, and it quickly swam towards the little girl's side. Bang 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 bang. The bird-headed snake beast looked around in astonishment. What was going on? It was completely blocked by the talisman arrays that were like iron walls. Now, it seemed to be trapped in a huge transparent container. No matter how hard it tried, it could not break out. The combination of the triple binding glyph and confinement glyph was fully unleashed around the bird-headed snake beast, suppressing it and trapping it within. Auber's 2 small hands slowly came out from under his sleeves. He looked at the ugly beast in front of him in despair. At the same time, he controlled the glyph formation around it, and at the same time, a divine sense suddenly drilled into the glyph formation. Auber closed his eyes and began to peel off the beast's flesh and bones. Yes, deprivation. In the past, he could deprive the beast's inner world. Now, he could deprive the beast's flesh and bones. Auber did not know what kind of strange skill this was. It seemed to be innate. Usually, there was no need for it, but at critical moments, it could have a miraculous effect. This little beast was like a parasite that had been residing in the 10,000-year phoenix wood. Chapter 3806. The honest 10,000-year-old phoenix tree didn't know how to resist, and just like that, it continued to absorb the power that others had painstakingly cultivated for 10,000 years. Everything it had now was sucked from other people's blood. When Auber deprived it, he didn't have any psychological burden. It was just so natural. The beast trapped in the confinement talisman array roared in pain and suddenly begged for mercy. It felt that it was too unlucky. For hundreds of years, it had lived peacefully in its nest without making any progress. It had always been very comfortable. It didn't expect that a little girl would come today and actually want to torture it to death. The bird-headed snake beast spoke human language and kept nagging and begging for mercy, saying that it would never dare to parasitize the roots of the phoenix tree again. It begged Auber to do good and let it go, and it would find another place to settle down. In the end, Sir Jojo listened to it mumbling in the array for a long time without any expression. He didn't even say a word to it. It was too infuriating. Why were humans so hateful nowadays? The bird-headed snake beast moved its curved snake body in a frenzy, and its eyes spewed out traces of green light wrapped in scarlet. Good, good, good. Since this fellow was determined not to let it live, then it would fight it out with her. The bird-headed snake beast thought for a moment. Although it was very reluctant, its life had reached the critical point now, and it was at the juncture of life and death. If it didn't fight with all its might, how could there be a way to live? The poison it had stored for a lifetime was all going to be wasted here today. When Auber saw that this fellow suddenly stopped talking, he became a little suspicious. He raised his hand and placed more than 10 defensive talismans on his body, wrapping himself layer by layer. The innermost layer also covered himself with an eggshell defensive barrier. Perfect. At the same time, the bird-headed snake beast had already burst open the tiny black lumps all over its body. A large amount of scarlet-green liquid gushed out of its black lumps, and when it spread over the soil, The poison immediately seeped into the soil, completely dyeing a few of the branches of the phoenix tree into an abnormal strange green. Auber's gaze became a little more severe. He called for a small amount of soil and water to go up together, and they all poured over the main root of the phoenix tree. The bird-headed snake beast released all the toxins in its body, and its entire body went limp as it lay on the ground. When it took a closer look, it almost fainted from anger. He saw that the shameless girl was covered in a defensive talisman array from head to toe. Like a round ball, it rolled towards him. Due to the instant the poison exploded, the bird-headed snake beast had already broken through the outer layer of the confinement array glyphs. However, it had yet to catch its breath, and its entire body was somewhat listless. Auber didn't care at all as he stepped on venom and jumped forward. This was because her entire body was covered with talismans, and her feet were also surrounded by the power of talismans. The poison could not even think of getting close to her. Of course, as the ancestor of poison, even if she was contaminated by this disgusting poison, she should be able to quickly detoxify it. After she stepped forward, she simply stretched out a small hand with the Vajra amulet attached to it and pressed it flat on the snake beast's head. He continued the process of stripping the bones and blood that had not been completed just now. After a quarter of an hour, Auber successfully stripped the divine beast's bones and blood from the bird-headed beast's body. A drop of bone and blood condensed into the size of a grain of rice, showing a faint green light, gently jumped and swayed between her fingers. "Big ape," Auber called out. Chapter 3807. With a wave of his hand, he released the big guy that was dancing excitedly in Paradise Planet. "Go and advance." Auber threw the drop of bone blood at her fingertip to the big ape that was pounding its chest and howling. She looked at it speechlessly. The big ape quickly absorbed the drop of bone blood. Then, it howled twice and was thrown into Fish Orchid Planet by Xiao Shui to advance. At this time, the bird-headed snake beast that had its bone and blood extracted had completely given up. Auber glanced at that thing. Although she despised it, she felt that the venom on the ground was still a little useful. She took out a large bottle and filled it with the venom on the ground. She then moved out the large and small basins that she had put into her inner world and began to water the phoenix wood with the nutrient solution. As she watered it, she muttered softly, "I'll go down and repair your foundation later. We'll be fine soon. You're a 10,000-year-old phoenix wood. I believe that if you want to send a message to the Phoenix clan, you can still do it." Auber's small hand paused and patted it. "Why don't you tell them?" The Phoenix clan thought that this was a 1,000-year-old phoenix wood and regarded it as a divine object. If the phoenix would send a message to Feng Zhongqing with its thoughts, Feng Zhongqing would immediately lead more than 2,000 Phoenix clan members and dig 3,000 feet into the ground. They would spend 10 days and 8 nights or even longer to find that parasitic beast and cripple it. Rustle, rustle the phoenix wood shook its dry branches as if to convey the joy in its heart. It hugged Lord Jojo intimately. Auber revealed a rare sincere smile. Usually, her smile was forced to curl the corners of her mouth or chuckle twice. Her expression was completely different from a chuckle. This phoenix wood was quite arrogant. It looked down on Feng Zhongqing and the others. Auber felt that she quite admired this phoenix wood's small temper. That's right. The Phoenix clan members looked like a bunch of clowns. None of them were reliable. Auber took out a small stool from her inner world and sat under the phoenix wood. She sincerely chatted with it. "Little wood, do you want to change to a better living environment?" Chochio, Little Water and Little Earth. Her master seemed to have turned on his bluff mode again. "Although this place isn't bad, look, there are dangers everywhere. There are also many humans and beasts coveting you. Isn't it too restless?" The phoenix tree rustled and shook its branches to express its agreement. Auber touched its trunk. "I'll help you fix the foundation later. I'm leaving tomorrow. From now on, we will never meet again." The phoenix tree had lived for 10,000 years, so how could it not understand the human language? At this moment, the 2 branches of the royal phoenix tree hugged Lord Jojo and swayed her small body. Auber shook his head decisively and said expressionlessly, "No, I can't stay here any longer. The world is so big, I need to go everywhere to gain experience. Only then can I slowly improve my ability." "Although this divine territory is not bad, it's still not the best," Auber said with a serious face. "I've discussed with the Phoenix clan that the treatment time is 3 days. Once the 3 days are up, I'll leave. As the saying goes, all good things must come to an end. It's fate that you and I have met. When fate ends, it will be gone. Every time her master turned on her bluff mode, she would suddenly act out of character. Chapter 3808. However, when the stoic face was chatting with you, there wasn't much expression on her small face. The phoenix would listened attentively and didn't seem to move for a long time. It was as though it was carefully pondering how to solve the problem at hand. The little girl said that the world was very big and she had to walk around. That was right. She was still young, so she indeed had to walk around and broaden her horizons. There was nothing wrong with her words. Then if she walked around, it would walk around with her, right? The phoenix would suddenly emitted a strange luster, and a mass of green paste-like substance that exuded a rich vitality suddenly flew into Auber's hand. Little water, little earth, and little Chirp's 3 lower jaws all fell off. That mass seemed to be the essence of holy wood. Could it be that this phoenix wood had already grown to an existence that surpassed the 9th level of spiritual wood origins and was almost no different from holy wood? That was right. It was the heart of a 10,000-year-old phoenix wood, so it naturally couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as 100,000-year-old phoenix wood. The little girl was still thinking about how to continue duping this fellow. Who knew that a paste-like substance would suddenly fly over and be absorbed by her spiritual ruin realm in a split second? This 10,000-year-old phoenix wood's heart was almost no different from the holy water's essence that she absorbed previously. It was powerful, full of energy, and filled with the aura of an ancient 10,000-year-old phoenix wood. Auber was petrified on the spot. She originally wanted to have a good chat with the royal phoenix tree. The 10,000-year-old phoenix wood's heart was like the essence of holy wood. The moment it entered Auber's spiritual ruin realm, Chochio was the first to sense this abnormality. Chochio's pleasantly surprised voice instantly rang out. Master, what did you do? Did you just save the world? How could such a powerful wisp of holy wood essence be injected into it? Furthermore, this wasn't its own holy wood essence. This was another kind of holy wood essence that was almost comparable to it. Chochio instantly let out a few wolf howls and howls. It was as though it had returned to its initial state of being a small, crooked tree that was letting out strange wolf howls. You're not a wolf, Auber said expressionlessly. Master, are you ready? Prepare for what? Auber was confused. Prepare to break through to the deity realm. Chochio cried out. Master Silver, I might have to sleep for a long time again this time. Once you step into the deity realm, the entire starfield will take a step towards the deity realm. At that time, we won't be able to use the starfield for a few days. Master Silva, you must protect yourself well. After Chochio forced himself to say a few words, he hurriedly shut his mouth to prevent himself from going berserk and immersed himself in cultivation again. Auber's heart skipped a beat. When he looked up, he opened his mouth slightly in surprise. The entire phoenix tree began to tremble. It was as if Phoenix Island was trembling as well. The earth trembled and the island in the center of the lake rippled, but it did not affect He-Chen and the others who were meditating and cultivating in the Phoenix Spring. The saint power in the Phoenix Spring Sanctuary was very abundant, and everyone was very happy to take it. The sound in the sacred region was completely blocked out, so no one noticed the abnormality there. However, the Feng clansmen who were cultivating by the lakeside all sensed this unusual tremor. Feng Zhongqing and Feng Zhongfei hurriedly set up a rainbow bridge and rushed over to the island in the center of the lake with a group of clansmen. They saw a strange scene from afar, so strange that it was unforgettable. Chapter 3809. They saw the little girl standing under the phoenix tree. Her small white figure was fluttering in the wind. The phoenix tree in front of him, however, shook its huge body and pulled its knotted roots out of the soil bit by bit. Yes, its countless roots buried deep in the ground were slowly pulled out of the ground. The scene shocked almost everyone. What did this phoenix tree want to do? It wanted to run away. Phoenix Island began to slowly shatter from the inside. As the phoenix tree's huge body was desperately climbing up from the depths of the ground, this pitiful island was destroyed with all its might and gradually fell apart. Auber looked at everything in front of her expressionlessly. After the phoenix tree's holy wood essence merged into her body was undergoing a transformation. The most important thing was that she must immediately find a quiet place to cultivate in seclusion, and not continue to stand on this island that was on the verge of collapse and stare at Feng Zhongqing and the others. The two high priests of the Phoenix clan who had rushed over after hearing the news looked at the scene in front of them in shock. They hurriedly knelt on the ground and repeatedly cupped their hands in the direction of the Phoenix tree. "Quick, everyone, kneel down and worship our clan's saintess." Everyone was dumbfounded. Worship who? These two high priests were second only to the chief grand elder in their clan. When the chief grand elder was in seclusion, all the clan's affairs were handled by the clan leader and these two high priests. The two high priests basically had the authority of the deputy clan leader in the Phoenix clan. Moreover, they were already old and had deep qualifications. They were respected by everyone in the clan, and no one dared to disobey them. When the clan leader, Feng Zhongqing, saw them, he had to respectfully address them as high priests. At this moment, the two high priests knelt down at the same time. They thought they were kneeling down to the Phoenix tree, but unexpectedly they were kneeling down to the little girl. "Quick! Kneel down. Kneel down." The two great consecrators turned around and glared at the Phoenixes. How could the Phoenix clan members dare to refute them? Although everyone was dumbfounded, they all obediently knelt down. Feng Zhongqing was about to kneel down when he was stopped by the angry Feng Zhongfei. "Big brother, they're crazy. Should we go crazy with them?" "Kneel for what? Where did the saintess come from?" The Phoenix clan had never had a saintess. "How dare you?" The two high consecrators glared at Feng Zhongfei angrily before bowing repeatedly in Qiao Mu's direction. "This darn brat is insensible. Please forgive him, Saint Lady. Quick, kneel down and pay your respects." Not to mention the Phoenixes, even Sir Jojo was a little confused. Needless to say, she herself was quite disgusted with the titles of Saintess and Saintess. When she heard others call her Saintess, she reflexively thought of the pretentious Saintess of the Sun Moon Temple. After Du Chunjiang left, Nie Yaoguang seemed to have disappeared without a trace. He probably went back to his nest. Why were these people kneeling and worshipping her, and even calling her Saintess? What a joke! Arbor was speechless as he looked at the people who were led by the two consecrators. They cupped their hands and bowed to him. His small body was a little stiff. "The Saintess has been born." A great consecrator wiped his old tears and turned to Feng Zhongqing with excitement. "Our Feng clan has hope in the future. Clan leader, the Saintess has been born. The Phoenix tree can be saved." Feng Zhongqing was still dumbfounded. Chapter 38:10. He was really curious. He didn't know where this Saintess came from. Why were the two consecrators so agitated? "Quick, go and ask Great Elder to come out of seclusion." The other consecrator also turned around and instructed the two clansmen behind him. "Tell Great Elder that the Saintess has come into being." Everyone, two great consecrators, this Phoenix Island was about to completely collapse. Shouldn't it be more appropriate for them to leave as soon as possible? At this very moment, the 10,000-year-old Phoenix tree finally broke free from the shackles of the ground and completely pulled its roots out of the ground. After a round, it shrank a lot. After a few rounds, it shrunk to a height of 3 meters. In an instant, the crown of the tree was wrapped in crimson leaves. It grew leaves. The Phoenix tree actually grew leaves. Feng Zhongqing looked at everything in front of him in shock and involuntarily got up from the ground. 3 days, no, 3 days hadn't passed yet. Sure enough, the little girl had brought the Phoenix tree back to life. Not only did she bring it back to life, but the Phoenix tree also crawled out of the ground. "Big brother, this Phoenix tree has become a spirit." Feng Zhongfei cried out in alarm. "What does it want to do?" "It's been following the little stoic face. Could it be that it wants to run away with the stoic face?" These words were simply the thoughts of many Phoenix clansmen. That was their clan's sacred object. How could it run away with the little girl? They absolutely couldn't let it run away. "Shut up, all of you, shut up." The two consecrators immediately jumped up and cupped their hands at Arbor. They turned around and berated Feng Zhongfei. "Stinking brat, what are you saying? How dare you be so rude to the Saintess?" What stoic face? Even if the Saintess had a stoic face, she was still the Phoenix clan's most honorable Saintess. Humph. Our ancient Phoenix clan scrolls have records of this. When the Phoenix clan's ancestors found this divine realm in Phoenix Forest, the Phoenix tree had already existed in the divine realm. It can even be said that the reason why this area we cultivate in became a divine realm is entirely because of the sacred power released by the Phoenix tree when it breathes in and out. The phoenix tree has become a sacred object that our clan has worshipped for generations, but it has its own autonomy. Our ancestors have clearly instructed us that if there comes a day when the phoenix wood forms its own consciousness and wants to leave, we are not allowed to stop it, the High Consecrator said with a serious expression. That's right. We've been using this divine territory. Over the past 1,000 years, the Phoenix clan has been living in seclusion and has gradually grown stronger. The phoenix tree has always been a sacred object of our clan, an existence akin to our benefactor. The clansmen can only worship it and cannot be disrespectful to it. The group of Windrace clansmen looked at each other before lowering their heads and lowering their necks. Since the high priest had said so, they naturally had no reason to force the phoenix tree to stay for them and continue to be the phoenix's protector. But just the thought of letting the phoenix would run away like this made his heart ache. Sigh. The clansman let out a long sigh. It was fate, not luck. What was to come would come in the end. Saintis. The high priest bowed toward Auber and said with a smile, "This island is about to sink. Let's get out of here first." Auber looked at the two high consecrators expressionlessly, and suddenly jumped onto the branch of the phoenix tree. At that moment, everyone only saw the little girl in a white blouse under the red leaves. Her delicate little face was paralyzed. At this moment, a claw-shaped scarlet flower with several tasseled phoenix tails suddenly drilled out from between the leaves. Chapter 38:11. Everyone looked on in shock, unable to utter a word for a long time. The entire Phoenix Island collapsed in an instant. Auber looked back, only to see that the Phoenix Springs sacred territory was wrapped in an invisible sacred power, unaffected by the collapse of the island. Hushurchin and the others were soaking in the Phoenix Spring, completely unaware of the changes in the outside world. Following an arc of white light, they suddenly sank into the lake. Auber frowned slightly and quickly released her divine sense to take a look. She found that everyone was still meditating in the Phoenix Spring. However, the Phoenix Spring was like a spherical isolation shield, completely shielding them from the outside world. Auber heaved a sigh of relief, hugged the phoenix wood, and smashed into the water with a bang. Saintis! The two high priests were shocked. As soon as Auber entered the water, she was like a fish in water. She quickly paddled away, hugging the phoenix wood, and her speed did not slow down at all. When she swam to the vicinity of the Phoenix Spring, the little fellow was anxious, so she did not care too much. She boldly opened her star domain and threw the Phoenix Spring, along with Hushurchin and the others, into the forest planet. After doing this, she did not have time to look at them again. She could only close her star domain first. Turning her head, she saw that the two high priests had anxiously entered the water and rushed toward her. Auber kicked her two short legs, and with a whoosh, she swam toward the surface of the water with the phoenix wood. With a splash, the little fellow poked her head out of the water, flicked her long black hair, and suddenly turned her head to look. She saw that many members of the Phoenix clan had fallen into the water, and the entire Phoenix Island had completely disappeared at this time. It had all turned into gravel and dust, falling into the depths of the lake. Auber blinked her big eyes and lay on the phoenix wood, but her entire body had already left the water. Her body was clean, without a drop of water, and her small face was still expressionless. She only silently looked at the few members of the Phoenix clan opposite her. Whoosh! The phoenix wood rose into the air and rushed back to the shore in a few minutes. Taking advantage of the fact that there was no one on the shore, Auber boldly opened her star domain again. She quickly touched the phoenix wood, gave a few instructions, and threw it into the forest planet first. After closing the star field, she shook her body slightly. She knew that she had to find a quiet place to cultivate in seclusion. Moreover, he really couldn't stay in the god domain and wreak havoc anymore. Although it was an excellent choice to advance in the divine territory, this place was rich in divine power after all. However, once she absorbed all of the divine power during her advancement, it was conceivable that this divine territory without the phoenix wood would not be able to quickly recover its divine power. Perhaps due to the excessive consumption of divine power, even this divine territory would face the fate of falling apart. If she continued to wreak havoc, she wouldn't be able to live with her conscience. It was better to leave a good place for the phoenixes. She had to leave this place as soon as possible. The two high reverends hurried over and only relaxed when they discovered that Xiao Mu was fine. Feng Zhangfei and Feng Zhangqing also rushed over as fast as they could. Feng Zhangfei immediately noticed that the phoenix wood was missing and immediately asked, "Where's the phoenix wood?" The phoenix wood had bloomed just now. It must have bloomed, right? Xiao Mu expressionlessly looked at him and indifferently spat out. He ran away. What? Feng Zhongfei's face was full of astonishment. Feng Zhongqing couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Zhongfei, that's enough. The high priest said that the phoenix wood has its freedom. Nothing can be forced. Chapter 38:12. If she ran away, then so be it, even though this matter was quite inconceivable. However, since the consecrator had already said so, they naturally could not force the phoenix tree to stay and continue to serve as their phoenix clan's sacred artifact. The phoenix tree was not a slave or possession of their clan's land. Arbor glanced indifferently at Feng Chongqing and his brother, then turned around and waved her hand. Farewell. Holy Maiden, please wait. The two great consecrators hurriedly said, Our great elder is rushing over. Please meet with our great elder before you leave. Arbor turned to look at them. I'm in a hurry to advance in seclusion. If there's anything, we can talk about it later. The two consecrators hurriedly glanced at her and nodded repeatedly. Then hurry up and bring the Holy Maiden to the clan's seclusion cultivation place. Arbor waved her hand. I'll go out and find a place. I can't be bothered to harm you bunch of idiots after saying that. She did not explain further. She turned around and ran out of the Phoenix clan's residence along the way. Open your door. Arbor's indifferent voice floated into everyone's ears. The two consecrators were stunned. Then, they hurriedly waved their hands and had someone open the door of the Phoenix clan's residence. Are we letting her run away just like that? Feng Zhongfei asked with a puzzled expression. The two consecrators turned to glare at Feng Zhongfei at the same time. Feng Zhongfei rubbed his nose helplessly and pursed his lips. We can't be rude to the Holy Maiden. It's good that you know. The two consecrators snorted at him and turned to look. They saw a green-robed old man stepping through the void at an extremely fast speed and arriving in front of everyone. Greetings, Grand Elder. Where's the Holy Maiden? The green-robed Grand Elder asked anxiously. The sacred teachings left behind by their ancestors had come true. Could the day of their Phoenix clan's reappearance be far away? The Grand Elder looked around excitedly, but he did not see the girl suspected to be the Holy Maiden. The Holy Maiden's advancement is imminent. She's entered the Phoenix forest. Nonsense. The Grand Elder's face immediately darkened. Why didn't she bring the Holy Maiden to our clan's cultivation place? The power there is abundant and rich. It will be more convenient for her to advance. I think the Holy Maiden doesn't want to trouble us, the two consecrators said weakly. Is there anyone protecting you? The two consecrators were stunned. They were so anxious that they were sweating profusely. There's no one by the Holy Maiden's side. Quick, quick, go out and look for him. She shouldn't have run too far. She's probably hiding somewhere nearby. The phoenixes hurriedly opened the door of their residence and went out in groups to look for Jojo. On the other side, after Arbor left the Phoenix clan's residence, he hurriedly found a place with dense woods nearby. The place in Arbor happened to be densely packed with trees. The trees formed a circle, and there were many low shrubs in front, which made it easy for people to hide. Arbor found a tall tree with a large shrub in front of it, dug a hole, and went in. Then he began to set up defenses. The advancement this time was of the utmost importance. Although time was of the essence, the necessary preparations could not be neglected. Arbor flicked her finger several times, setting up multiple layers of defense, confinement, binding, and overlapping talisman formations around her. Afterwards, she set up a dozen or so mirage talisman matrices in the vicinity. Xiao Mu's projection could be seen meditating and cultivating inside each of the talisman matrices. Every Sir Qiao Qiao was expressionless. After doing all this, Arbor scraped out a drop of blood from her fingertip. Drawing talisman in the air. Gathering talisman power. Chapter 38:13. With a heavy expression, Arbor drew runes and connected them, reinforcing the Vajra talisman, gravity talisman, and shielding talisman on the tree. In the blink of an eye, the tree Arbor was on seemed to have disappeared from the world, and no one could find a trace of its aura. She knew all too well what kind of commotion she would cause when she advanced. She didn't even need to think about it, it would definitely be earth-shattering. If everyone rushed over to Feng Mulin's side, wouldn't it disturb her important advancement? Thus, the shielding talisman formation was of the utmost importance. It completely sealed off her spirit energy fluctuations. Even if they wanted to find her, they would have to break through the dozen or so illusion talisman formations first. After doing all this, Arbor used the flying talisman to rise up from the inside of the tree hole. She stuck to the top of the tree hole and looked coldly at the ground. Under the tree hole, on the originally empty ground, Arbor's illusion appeared again. She sat there with a cold aura, just like the real person. Her eyes were sharp, and she looked down on everything. After adding a dozen or so defense talismans to the illusion, a saint-grade golden talisman summoning talisman floated out of Arbor's fingertip and slowly rippled behind the illusion's head. The primordial beast she summoned last time was too powerful, so after Arbor summoned it for the first time, it would return home on its own. But since it could return home, this saint-grade golden talisman summoning talisman could summon it again. She just didn't know if it would summon the same species. After everything was settled, Arbor summoned the mechanism diagram from her consciousness and used the ready-made formations in the diagram to set up a triple heaven and earth killing formation within a radius of 5 kilometers. If you dare to break the formation, I'll kill you back to the Yellow Springs. The 9 hells purgatory will be waiting for you. No matter who it was, no one could stop her from advancing to the deity realm. 5 Spirit reincarnation. No matter who it was, if they dared to hurt her, they would die after everything was done. Arbor expressionlessly put countless defense talisman formations on her body, then slowly closed her eyes. Just like the mystic realm and spirit ascension realm, Arbor couldn't hide in the star field to cultivate with such a huge leap in cultivation. Firstly, it would affect her ability to absorb world spirit energy from the outside world. Secondly, it might affect the transformation of her star domain from spirit realm to god realm. The advancement of her god domain was too important. She wouldn't gamble on it unless it was absolutely necessary. The moment Arbor closed his eyes, he could clearly feel the entire star field beginning to close. Fortunately, she had already received the little tree's hint and moved some necessities into her inner world. Her little companions were all left in the star field, including the little blue snake on her wrist. She had also thrown it back. The moment spirit realm turned into a star domain, although the star domain was very turbulent, the benefits were also enormous. Although she was alone now, when she thought that everyone was by her side, her heart was filled with endless courage. Xiao Mu was sitting cross-legged in the air a dozen or so meters above the tree hole. As he closed his eyes, he began to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Once this absorption began, all the spiritual energy of heaven and earth within 1,000 kilometers of Phoenix Wood was sucked over. It was like a whirlpool that was spinning at a high speed and suddenly exploded in the sky. This was just the beginning. All the teams training in Phoenix Wood couldn't help but stop and look at the strange direction in the sky. Chapter 38:14. Strangely, the sky suddenly turned dark and silent. Qi Xianxian, Duanmu Qing, and the others who were gathered together immediately stopped and looked up. I don't know where Jojo went. He should be fine, right? Qi Xianxian asked worriedly. He shouldn't be. Duanmu Qing shook his head. You forgot that the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, His Excellency Little Tai Sui, and the others can come and help at any time. N. Little Fatty nodded as well. Chow Chow will be fine. But this strange phenomenon in the sky seems a little strange. Could it have something to do with Jojo? Don't be so suspicious. Everyone talked as they walked. When they saw that the sky had completely darkened, they couldn't help but stop. It was still afternoon, but the sky was already as dark as the middle of the night. It was too strange. The situation in front is unclear. Let's find a safe place to stay first and continue when the sky is normal. Okay. When Jojo wasn't around, everyone was used to listening to Duanmu Qing's orders. When they heard him say that, they naturally nodded in agreement. At the same time, many of the other training squads and mercenaries in the Phoenix Woods also stopped. Some cautious team leaders made the same decision as Duanmu Qing. They stopped their team's movements and temporarily made everyone stay where they were. Everyone didn't know what was going on. They also didn't know that the sky was changing and that someone was advancing to the godly state. Most people only felt that the sky was so strange that something big was about to happen. Just as everyone was attracted by the sky phenomenon, Arbor, who was hiding in the tree hole and cultivating, could clearly feel that all the spirit chi of heaven and earth was flocking towards her. Right now, the tree she was on was completely enveloped by dense spiritual energy. Eben couldn't see the tree's true appearance. A whirlpool formed by heaven and earth opened above the tree's head. Endless spirit chi swirled in the center. All the spirit chi within 1,000 miles was flocking towards her without any resistance. Even a blind person could see that there was a problem with this level of spirit chi. Outside Phoenix Woods, Gu Yixuan, who was supposed to return to the academy a few days ago, didn't actually go back. As for Huang Qishan, Su Fugui and Zhong He, the three of them were also by his side. 3 days ago, they joined a small mercenary group called Fierce. The leader was a rank 14 Great Spirit Master in his 40s. He had a strong physique that ordinary Great Spirit Masters didn't have. He looked very powerful. Let's go and take a look. The captain of the Kwangmeng mercenary team, Wang Kwang, was not a person who was afraid of trouble. He was a guy who would appear wherever there was danger. Seeing such a phenomenon, not only did they not set up camp like the other teams, but they were also in high spirits. Although Gu Yixuan didn't say anything, he had some doubts in his heart. For the sky to be so abnormal, it was either that someone was advancing in rank or that a treasure had appeared. Captain. A seductive woman, whose face was painted red and green like a monkey's butt, grinned. Our spy is back. Ah, Little Bean is back. Tell me about the situation ahead. Someone is advancing. It's in the forest ahead. Little Bean's eyes flashed with excitement. He's advancing to the godly state. He's probably about to enter the 5-spirit reincarnation. Then what are we waiting for? Haha. Chapter 38:15. There are actually people advancing in a place like the Phoenix Forest, aren't they just waiting to be killed? The female mercenary in the ferocious mercenary team smiled sweetly, her eyes flashing slightly. Wang Kwang laughed out loud and stretched out his large palm, holding the woman's shoulder and nodding approvingly. Yao Hong is right. Everyone get ready. We will set off now. Xiao Dou will lead the way. All right. The dark and skinny mercenary named Xiao Dou immediately stood up and led the team into the Phoenix Forest. The ferocious mercenary team, including Gu Yixuan and the other 3, had a total of 25 people. Huang Qishan approached Gu Yixuan and whispered to him, Are we really not going back to the academy? Do we still have to go in with them to stir up trouble? Gu Yixuan clenched his fists unwillingly. We joined Wang Kwang's mercenary team so that we can enter the Phoenix Forest as cultivators. If we leave now, all our previous efforts will be wasted. Another royal school student, Zhong He, could not help but say. Su Fugui glanced at the worried Huang Qishan and grinned. Brother Huang, you're not scared, right? What a joke. Why would I be scared? Huang Qishan glared at him and glared at Su Fugui. I already said that Brother Huang would not be scared off by a few words from a teacher. Su Fugui shrugged. Besides, we are not going to cause trouble. It's just that there is a strange phenomenon in the Phoenix Forest. As cultivators, we have the obligation to go and investigate. Su Fugui's words were dignified and were quite persuasive. If Huang Qishan did not know this person's character well, he would have been fooled by him. Hey, are you guys going or not? At this moment, one of the members of the mercenary team turned around and frowned at the 4 royal school students behind them. He could not help but shout at them. Go, go, we're coming. Gu Yixuan and the other 3 responded and quickly rushed over. Boys, don't worry. Since you are here to train in the Phoenix Forest, we can't let you return empty-handed. Wang Kwang hugged the woman who was twisting and turning around and smiled at Gu Yixuan and the other 3. If you follow Brother Wang, you'll be able to pick up some benefits. Gu Yixuan nodded, thanked Wang Kwang, and quickly followed after them with Huang Qishan and the other 2. Wang Kwang was right. Since they had entered a mountain of treasures, how could they let them return empty-handed? He had to dig up something from the Phoenix Wood Forest to bring back. Otherwise, it would be a wasted trip. Wang Kwang hugged the woman beside him as he chuckled and said, I wonder who it is that has the guts to advance in a place like this. Brother Wang, although I don't know who it is, it's definitely someone with a bad brain. Xiao Dou laughed. There are so many mercenary teams here, as well as teams of experiencers. There might even be some murderers who escaped from the city. Ha ha ha, she's advancing here. Isn't she just waiting to be besieged? That's right. It's fine if you say that she's going to find a secluded place in the city to advance. There are guards in the city to maintain law and order. Even if there are experts who have designs on her, they would still have to consider the people above. One of the mercenaries pointed to the sky. Haha, that's right. Xiaodou laughed again. Now, this person is a fat piece of meat in the eyes of all the experiencers. Chapter 38:16. Wang Kuang narrowed his eyes and nodded. You're right. Brothers, what are we waiting for? Let's hurry up. Why didn't you stay at home and advance steadily? Why did you have to come to such a holy place to gain experience? This was the way of the world. There were many people who wanted to take advantage of the situation to kill others and steal their treasures. There were a few other bold mercenary teams that moved at the same time as Wang Kuang. They had the same idea as Wang Kuang and the others, which was to rush over and get some benefits. It took courage to advance in such an unstable environment because everyone knew that advancement wasn't something that could be done in a day or a few hours. Especially for Arbor, who had to go through the 5-spirit reincarnation to break through to the immortal state. No matter which part of the process went wrong, all the previous efforts would be wasted. Many of them had been stuck in a certain realm for 3 to 5 years, or even more than 10 years. When they saw others advance, their eyes turned red with jealousy. Under such circumstances, wouldn't it be great to follow the group and cause trouble? Anyway, they weren't the unlucky ones. Everyone was just following the crowd and causing trouble. There was nothing to be afraid of. At that time, when that person failed to advance, there would definitely be someone who would kill him first. Many people had the idea of following along to watch the show and then return with something for free. Killing others and stealing their treasures? Just thinking about it made them excited. Shi Lang and his mercenary group of more than 30 people had the same idea. While rushing, they kept an eye on the changes in the weather and headed toward Arbor's hiding place. As soon as they arrived, Shi Lang found that there were more than 100 people who had arrived earlier than them. These mercenary teams didn't move forward. They were all huddled together and talking noisily. Shi Lang rolled his eyes and went up to greet them with a smile. Hey! Isn't this the leader of the Dai or mercenary group? Ah, this is Queen Fu Sha from the Dafeng tribe, right? Queen Fu Sha, who was wearing a red veil and had a hot body, glanced at Shi Lang and snorted. What's wrong with everyone? Why are you all standing around here and not continuing? Shi Lang smiled wretchedly at the crowd, his face revealing a trace of confusion. Captain Shi Lang, there's something you don't know. There's a large-scale formation here, and we're still thinking of a way to break it. A mercenary group leader smiled and said to Shi Lang, Ah, that's right, you're a 5th-rank mercenary group. There are no less than 7 or 8 12th-rank Great Spirit Masters in your mercenary group. How about this? Let your subordinates try to open this array formation. Shi Lang chuckled and glanced at the mercenary group leader. Wishful thinking. He wanted his subordinates to take the lead. If something happened, wouldn't his men die at the very front? Did he think he was stupid? Shi Lang swept his gaze around with a fake smile. Everyone present has a higher cultivation base than my legionnaires. Why don't you all go first? Everyone secretly cursed the old fox. They hesitated and paced back and forth outside the needle technique. For the time being, no one dared to step forward. Out of the way, out of the way, out of the way! A delicate rebuke came from behind the crowd. Everyone turned around and saw a tall, thin, and average-looking woman walk over. Behind her were 2 young men and 2 young ladies. One of the young ladies looked like a well-bred young lady who had been raised in a boudoir. Chapter 38:17. The girl's face was beautiful and gentle. Her eyes were like a feather as they fluttered across everyone's heart. Especially the tear mole at the corner of her eye. It perfectly complemented her soft face. She was truly a naturally charming little beauty. Lin Zhan'er was enraged by the way the mercenaries were openly sizing her up, and she roared at the Shi Lang mercenary band. Are you guys blind? How dare you look at our junior sister like that? Do you know who she is? She is the daughter of the City of Shadows' first city lord, Mu Jinghong. 4th Miss, Mu Xiaoxue. The mercenaries immediately retracted their malicious gazes. The City of Shadows was a behemoth that no one dared to provoke. It was a hidden sect that transcended the 3 prefectures. There were countless experts among them. No one dared to provoke them. Moreover, it was said that their first city lord, Mu Jinghong, was a very unreasonable person who was very protective of her people. For people from such a large sect, everyone had a life lamp. If their life lamp was extinguished, Mu Jinghong would naturally receive the message. Then, they could only wait to be unlucky. Those who dared to challenge the City of Shadows would eventually be killed by the countless experts sent by the City of Shadows. Thinking of this, the few daring mercenaries couldn't help but shudder and quickly retracted their gazes. Humph! Lin Zhener smiled proudly. Mu Xiaoxue said gently, "Everyone, I'm really sorry. My senior sister's temper is quite fiery. She only wanted to protect me. She didn't mean to target you. May I know why everyone is blocking the way? We want to go into the depths of the forest to pick some herbs. Can't we pass through now?" Mu Xiaoxue was good-looking and very polite. Coupled with her soft voice, the mercenaries around her felt very comfortable listening to her. Hence, one of them couldn't wait to explain to her what was going on. Lin Zhener frowned and turned to Zhao Yi and Chiefei. "Senior brothers, what should we do now?" The purpose of their trip was to pick the phoenix flower. Xiao Shui was worried that they wouldn't be able to differentiate the real phoenix flower, so she followed along. The journey was really quite bumpy. They didn't want to recall their experience at Oxhead Mountain again. Who would have thought that when they finally arrived at the Phoenix Wood Forest, they would be blocked by some kind of broken array, unable to continue forward. Mu Xiaoxue was also very anxious. The map marked with the phoenix flower clearly indicated the direction. They had to go through this place. What should she do if she was stuck here forever? "Why don't you all listen to me?" Shi Lang rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "Since there are so many of us here, there's no reason why we can't even break a small array formation. How about this? Each team will send out 3 of their strongest members and let them work together to break this formation. What do you all think? This is a very fair method." Wang Kuang hugged his woman and smiled. He waved his hand and pointed at the 3 strongest mercenaries in the team. As a result, each team sent out 3 members and walked forward. More than 20 people lined up in front of the array barrier. At the same time, they gathered their strength and threw out a punch. Boom, 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 boom. Huge tremors resounded throughout the entire Phoenix Wood Forest. Chapter 38:18. After a flash of light, the 20 or so people disappeared in front of everyone at the same time, giving everyone a fright. "What's going on?" Shi Lang shouted in a stern voice, his suspicious gaze sweeping over everyone's faces. The others were also looking at him suspiciously. After all, he was the one who suggested that each team send out 3 people. Now that 20 or so people disappeared at the same time, shouldn't it be his fault? Shi Lang was naturally depressed. His people had also disappeared, okay? What's going on? What's going on? After a few screams, many people suddenly disappeared on the spot. A bunch of idiots. Dai Er's face darkened as she shouted, "Retreat!" This was the activation of the formation. However, when everyone retreated, they felt as if their legs were fixed in place. A layer of floating light enveloped them, and in a matter of minutes, everyone present was dragged into the formation. "Captain, be careful." His assistant, Su Ha, raised his axe and chopped off the head of one of the wooden dummies. The head rolled on the ground. The others were also attacked by dozens of wooden dummies. They stepped on a large patch of yellow sand and held their weapons as they fought against the wooden dummies that surrounded them. Damn it, where did these things come from? Everyone be careful. Xiao Rou, the maid with a red scar on her face, protected her Miss Xiao Shui as they retreated. The 3-foot-long sword in her hand flew back and forth. Wherever it went, the wooden dummies' heads would be reaped. However, there were too many wooden dummies in this place. It was as if there was an endless stream of them. After killing one batch, another batch would appear. At the same time, the eyeballs in Xiao Mu's closed eyes moved slightly, and she pursed her small rosy lips in displeasure, enveloping them with dense spiritual energy. Her fingers suddenly moved and quickly formed a seal. 3 runes flew out like flowing light. A bunch of people who deserve to die. How dare you come and disturb Jojo's advancement? Leave all of you behind. For a moment, everyone fighting the wooden dummies in the formation felt the pressure on their bodies increase. Waves of cold wind blew from all directions, rolling up wave after wave of earth tornadoes. A mercenary exclaimed as he was surrounded by a group of wooden dummies. His head was twisted off on the spot. The others' faces changed. All kinds of fire and water spirits attacked the wooden dummies. At first, they didn't want to waste so much spiritual power, but these wooden dummies had suddenly become so powerful that they had no choice but to treat them seriously. They were here to see if there were any benefits to be gained, not to be killed in this strange formation before they even got close to their target. Dell was already regretting her decision. She had always been a very cautious person. Coincidentally, he walked nearby and saw so many people gathered around. His curiosity was piqued. She really wasn't here to break the formation or take advantage of the situation. However, curiosity really killed the cat. Now, the entire team had been tricked by her curiosity. The wooden dummies came one after another as if there was no end to them. They did not know that Arbor had used the mechanism diagram to set up the triple heaven and earth killing array. Right now, they were only experiencing the first stage. Everyone, let's work together and carve out a path. Shi Lang shouted angrily. At this moment, no one could hold back anymore. If they didn't fight with their lives on the line, they might really die here. Everyone waved the weapons in their hands, and all kinds of spiritual energy smashed down without any regard for their lives. Chapter 38:19. Kill! Shi Lang and the others roared angrily as they charged forward and furiously hacked at the wooden dummies in front of them. Gu Yixuan furrowed his brow and kicked away the wooden dummy. He turned around and asked Huang Qishan breathlessly, "Old Huang, don't you think it's a bit strange?" "Of course it's strange. These damned wooden dummies seem to be endless." "That's true." Zhong He nodded. "No, don't you think this method is familiar?" Huang Qishan stilled, but the overwhelming number of wooden dummies that came at them did not allow him to think too much. Everyone wanted to cry but had no tears. They could only wield their weapons and continuously hack, their movements very mechanical. At the same time, 3 fugitives gathered together and did their best to kill the black shadows that flew in front of them as they roared angrily. "Old Hang, how is the formation breaking? We can't hold on much longer here. This is the triple-layer killing formation of heaven and earth." An old man with white hair and a white beard who looked benevolent said as he stroked his beard, "The wooden dummies that we just broke through were the first layer of the formation. This is the second layer. If we want to break through, we'll probably have to expend even more effort than before. Old Hang, don't waste words, hurry up." The person who spoke had large and small eyes and a ferocious face. It was the captain of their group of 4, Gue Chiu. He was born with a deformed left hand and was vicious and merciless. His left hand was half the length of his right hand, and his palm was 2/3 smaller than an adult's palm, like the hand of a 7- or 8-year-old child. These 4 people had committed a major crime in Li City, exterminating a medium-sized family, stealing the treasures of the family and escaping. That family's entire family of 208 people had been killed by them. Right now, these 4 people were being pursued by the large and small families of Li City. They had no choice but to run out of the city and hide in the perimeter of Phoenix Wood. Phoenix Wood was extremely large. After they ran in, they hid in it for more than half a month. Right now, the large families of Li City had gathered the elites of their families and formed an adventurer team of over 1,000 people in order to enter Phoenix Wood to capture these 4 vicious people. These 4 people had stepped on the bottom line of all the Xiuzha in Li City. They didn't even let go of a baby who wasn't even a month old. They were truly insane. The reason they came to Arbor to break the array was also because of fate. Among the 4 of them, Old Hang was an outstanding formation master. He could see that there was a large formation here, so he knew that there must be something unusual going on. When the 4 fugitives learned that someone was breaking through to the god realm here, they immediately had evil intentions. He wanted Old Hang to break the formation, kill the person who broke through, and snatch the Dharma treasure from her. After all, those who broke through to the divine realm and wanted to go through the 5 spirits reincarnation tribulation would more or less bring a few treasures with them to defend against the heavenly fire and heavenly thunder. However, what they didn't expect was that they would only find out how powerful this damn triple-killing formation of heaven and earth was after entering the formation. It wasn't easy for them to rush over from the wooden dummies. Now that they were surrounded by the ghost spirits, they could only bite the bullet and continue to kill. Qiu Gui felt extremely resentful. His intuition told him that if he could break through this formation, he would definitely torture the person in the formation to death to release the vicious aura that had been in his heart for a long time. At the same time, Ming Yasi's group once again silently encountered Omega Kotoka's group. It was a dark day. Fortunately, both sides had night pearls in their hands so they could see who the other side was. Chapter 38:20. They could very well fight over the other party's rubies, but everyone was well aware of both parties' strengths. If they really fought, it was really unknown who would emerge victorious, so there was no need to make a big fuss. Yeli pursed his lips and said, "For some reason, I have a premonition that such a big commotion is related to Stoic Face. Those familiar with Stoic Face should know that wherever this guy passed, there was not a single instance of peace and tranquility. The experiential training in north-facing Great Forest and the treasure hunt in the Sun-Moon Mystery Realm were the best proof." Ming Yasi expressionlessly glanced at Omega Kotoku and the others. The two teams silently parted ways and walked in the same direction. Eldest Qin saw that the atmosphere was not good, so he couldn't help but giggle and sway his body. He floated to Ming Yasi's side and said, "Crown Prince of Ming Province, there's an earth-shattering surge of spiritual energy ahead. Do you think we'll be in danger if we go over now?" Ming Yasi glanced at him and replied with a chuckle. This guy was trying to find a topic to talk about, right? While everyone was silently walking, they suddenly saw the tree branches in front of them move slightly. They saw a team of 8 walking over from a slanted path and coincidentally met up with their 2 teams. The 3 teams looked at each other and caught a faint hint of gunpowder in each other's eyes. At this time, Omega Kotoku and Ming Yasi simultaneously had the same thought. Why did we encounter this guy? Has this guy recovered his strength yet? Ha ha ha. What a coincidence, fellow students. Seeing the heavy atmosphere, Mata couldn't help but jest. Eldest Qin waved the small fan in his hand and glanced at them with a grin. He waved his hand at Mo Lien and Duan Yu. "Prince Mo, Prince Chen, how are you two?" Everyone was currently sizing up the two of them from head to toe. If they hadn't recovered their cultivation, after so many days, they should have become stray dogs. But now, Prince Mo, Duan Yu, and the others looked neat and tidy and refreshed, so they should be. Duan Yu curled his lips and smiled faintly at eldest young Sir Qin. "Sorry to disappoint you, but we're doing very well." Eldest young master chuckled. "Disappointed your sister?" One of the Omega Kotoku's men stepped forward and whispered to the Omega Kotoku, "Second young master, we don't have much time left. We need to act as soon as possible." Omega Kotoku flipped over the identity card in his hand and looked at the time on the back. Less than 70 hours had passed, and they still seemed to have gained nothing. Time was indeed a little tight, and they could not continue to mingle here. Eldest young Sir Qin's gaze swept over Mo Lien and company. Jojo isn't with you?" Mo Lien swept a glance at him, looking as if she couldn't be bothered with him. When they were teaming up earlier, everyone clearly knew who was on the same team. Now he was deliberately saying this. He wanted to remind him that Jojo was not by his side. "Wah, my heart hurts." Humph. This guy was purposely poking at his heart. How infuriating! Eldest young Sir Qin blinked as an imperceptible smile hung on his lips. He suddenly pointed ahead. "Wow, wow, wow. Look over there. What's going on?" Bam, 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 bam. Following a series of anguished wails, countless people were sent flying and rolled into a pile, their wails echoing everywhere. Duan Yu took advantage of the situation to shift to Emolien's side, only to see a man sprawled on all fours smashing over from where he was originally standing. Closely following that, a coquettish woman slammed into that man with a bam and cried out in pain. The array spat them out. Chapter 38:21. Rewind time to 15 minutes ago. Arbor had inserted several Mystic Een talismans into the triple heaven and earth killing formation, filling it with ghostly aura. Everyone who entered the second layer of the killing array was killed by the ghost spirits. The mercenaries led by Shi Lang, Wang Kuang, Dai and Queen Fu Sha had truly suffered heavy casualties. In the end, Dai made a prompt decision and hastily expressed her stance, requesting that they be released from the formation. After all, Dai and her group merely rushed over to take a look out of curiosity, but the result was tragic. Hence, the formation spat out Dai and her group on the spot. As for Wang Kuang, they originally wanted to enter the formation to search for the person who had broken through, to kill and seize the treasure. The formation had already been broken to this extent, so how could they back out and let their previous efforts go to waste? Moreover, they secretly despised Dyer's cowardice in their hearts. As expected, this woman was terrible at leading a team. Retreating in the face of difficulties. Haha. Hence, Emolien, Duan Yu, and the others outside saw these fellows from the Dyer mercenary group being flung out by the formation and landing in front of them. Duan Yu expressionlessly gazed at those pitiful people, who looked like they had weathered many hardships. He asked with a sneer, "Did you see who?" He dared to bet his head that the person who set up the formation was 99% likely their Jojo. These people wanted to break the formation and enter because they wanted to affect Jojo's advancement? That was it, right? For some reason, Dyer could clearly sense traces of evil from these people. She had already recognized many of their identities. The Crown Prince of the Divine Province, Song Province's Prince Chen, as well as the Crown Prince of Ming Province, the young masters of the Qin Estate, and the Mu Estate. Why were all these heavyweights gathered here? Dyer was a smart person, so she naturally wouldn't go against Emolien and her group, whose strength far exceeded normal people. She obediently stood up and straightened out her clothes before bowing to Emolien and the others. She said respectfully, "Your Highness the Crown Prince, everyone, our Dyer mercenary group was merely passing by this place and was inadvertently sucked into the formation. I explained this matter to the senior in the formation, and the senior was kind enough to let us out. Our mercenary group had no intention of disturbing senior's cultivation." Emolien, Duan Yu, Ming Yasi, and the young masters of the Qin Estate couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. What happened? What senior? Shouldn't Jojo be the one in the array? Emolien immediately understood what Del meant. Dyer and the others probably didn't see who was inside the formation at all, right? Therefore, she secretly felt that the person who was able to set up such a powerful formation must be an extraordinary senior. Duan Yu also instantly understood Dyer's meaning. He speechlessly glanced at this disheveled woman and waved his hand. Withdraw. Del and the others heaved a sigh of relief. To tell the truth, they simply didn't care about Duan Yu and the others' haughty attitude toward them. After all, these people before them all had extraordinary statuses, and none of them were people that a small fourth-grade mercenary group like theirs could afford to offend. Thank you for sparing my life, Senior. Del swore that she would never be curious about anything that had nothing to do with her anymore. Let's go. Emolien sent a look at Duan Yu, Mu Xingchen, and the others. She immediately abandoned the Omega Kotoku, Ming Yasi, and the others and hurried toward the large formation. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.